Disclaimer. This video contains spoilers for these Transformers titles. There are time codes in the description if you want to jump around. We all good? Alright, now let's dive right in.
We now return to the Transformers.
The dawn of the 21st century was an awkward time for Transformers. Fans were still reeling after the controversial run of Beast Machines. Because of that, they weren't nearly as keen on animal-based Transformers as they were only a few short years earlier, a reaction that was also felt in Japan. While Beast Wars and Beast Machines were airing in North America, Takara created several Japanese-exclusive spin-off shows with their own toy lines. Beast Wars 2nd, Beast Wars Neo, and finally, the very creatively named Car Robots. But these properties oversaturated the animal transformer market, and the overcomplicated toys of the Neo line were specifically to blame for Japanese audiences losing interest in the concept just as Americans had. As such, in response, Hasbro and Takara teamed up for the first ever Transformers co-production. Together they would design an all-new toy line as well as a new TV series that would debut in both markets simultaneously in 2002. Yeah, it was going to be a while before that would see fruition, so in the meantime, there needed to be something in the here and now to keep American audiences engaged. So, in the 11th hour, the third of Japan's Beast Wars shows, Car Robots, was ported over to the US, renamed Robots in Disguise. There was just one little thing. Car Robots was meant to be a continuation of all of the shows before it. It was actually meant to continue the continuity laid out by G1, Beast Wars, and the Japanese spin-offs. But the show was very loosey-goosey with this approach. There really wasn't much that actually tied it back to the long lineage of shows before it. So Hasbro took the liberty to instead make it a complete reboot. For the first time in Transformers history, the franchise would start over. A new continuity, new takes on existing characters with no ties to the long history before it. And with a TV debut imminent, the toy line also hit shelves. The toy line was kind of a hodgepodge of a couple different things. For one thing, it featured some unreleased Beast Wars toys, as well as some repaints from Generation 2. On top of that, the enemy faction, the Predacons, still maintained their beast modes like they had in the Beast era, but the hero toys transformed into contemporary vehicles and were once again known as Autobots, led by none other than Optimus Prime. All of this led way to the TV show's debut on September 8th, where before Hasbro and Takara could wow fans with their co-production efforts in 2002, fans would return to TV screens for the quasi-first reboot of the Transformers. This show was kind of a return to form for Transformers. In contrast to Beast Wars and Beast Machines' more serialized efforts, this show is a lot more episodic. Each episode features the Predacons concocting a dastardly new plan to destroy the Earth, prompting the Autobots to unite to defeat them. Featuring the Autobots' Optimus Prime, who can combine with the back half of his fire truck vehicle to form a battle mode. There's the brothers X-Brawn, Prowl, and Sideburn, the Bullet Train's Railspike, Rapid Run, and Midnight Express, who combine to form Rail Racer. There's the Spy Changers Hotshot, Rev, Crosswise, Wars, Ironhide, and Mirage. There's Skids and Towline, as well as the build team Wedge, Heavy Load, Hightower, and Grimlock, who can all combine to form Landfill. And they all have access to the Autobots' computer AI, Tai, who's said to be the daughter of Teletran 1. Somehow, they're joined by human ally Koji Onishi, whose father, Dr. Kenneth Onishi, was captured by the Predacons led by Megatron, who's actually a quintuple changer in this show. He's got 5 different modes. He's joined by Predacons Gas Skunk, Slapper, Darkscream, and Skybite. And for the first time in years, the Decepticons make their return in the form of a small team consisting of repaints of the Combaticons from G1. But here, they're considered new characters. characters: Mega Octane, Armorhide, Rollbar, Rotor, and Movor, who combine to form Ruination, led by the maniacal Scourge, an evil clone of Optimus Prime. Voicing these characters was a cast pretty much entirely new to Transformers, with Daniel Riordan voicing Megatron and Neil Kaplan voicing Optimus Prime, who even gets to play in the comedic sandbox from time to time, like this moment where Skybite tries to show off his poetry and Optimus turns into a professional critic.
You might do better with limericks. Your imagery is derivative. It lacks semiotic cohesion, and the hapless foe is you.
Wow, Prime, just ruin the guy's dreams, why don't you? But that's really only the tip of the comedic iceberg, because this show, more than any before it, is kind of an out-and-out comedy. I mean, take the running gag where this poor woman, Kelly, ends up getting inconvenienced by the Transformers in both major and minor ways in nearly every single episode. I mean, she cannot catch a break. But the biggest comedic standout here is definitely Skybite, as while he is constantly trying to win Megatron's favor, he actually amasses some empathy for humanity. He even gets his own little fan base. This is exemplified in one of the show's best episodes, where he and the other Predacons inadvertently have to help the Autobots save a skyscraper full of people.
Everyone in favor of freeing these innocent hostages? Raise your hands! I didn't mean for you to let go! Oh, no. Over here! Careful! Careful!
There's only one little thing. That episode never actually aired in the United States. In fact, this show became one of the many pieces of media changed or affected by the September 11th attacks on the World Trade Center. Several episodes depicted scenes of urban destruction, all of which were either drastically re-edited or straight up not aired in the US, as they had become unintentionally insensitive.
Sorry, Optimus.
That's all right. One wrong blast to that plutonium energy generator, and this whole place could explode.
What? Sorry, Optimus.
If the plutonium generator inside gets damaged, the leaking zirconium gas could corrode our microcircuitry.
What?
As a result, there were a handful of episodes released out of order, making it difficult to keep continuity as it aired. But at the same time, the show's more comedic tone and episodic storytelling made it easy to jump into a given episode without any prior knowledge, making it quite accessible to new fans. Beyond that though, the show was just simply aired at the right time. The early 2000s saw a surge of anime's popularity in North America, and at the same time, 80s nostalgia was starting to break through, which Transformers was a fairly significant part of. On the flip side, however, the episodic approach to the show made it more repetitive and tedious to older fans of the franchise, and while there were some serialized elements, they moved at a glacial pace. Like how in the first episode, Koji's father, Dr. Onishi, is captured by the Predacons. Seems like a big deal, right? Like it'll motivate the whole show's events? Well, his capture is really only mentioned once every 6 or 7 episodes, until he's kind of accidentally returned to the Autobots and able to reunite with his son in episode 30 of 39. So it was a little difficult to get truly invested. The introduction of Ultra Magnus didn't help matters either, as he was a very different character than the steadfast commander of G1. This Ultra Magnus was a jealous and vengeful character who was appalled that Optimus Prime received the Matrix instead of him. But ultimately, the two characters do learn to work together, allowing them to combine into Omega Prime, which is actually the first time a major North American iteration saw Optimus Prime combined with another character for additional power. But towards the end of the show's run, some serialized elements began to take center stage, like how in the final episode of the calendar year, Megatron gains an immense amount of power, turning into none other than Galvatron. Oh boy, we're dealing with Galvatron now. I haven't seen him in a while. And his arrival led straight into the show's final stretch in the early months of... The final episodes center on Cerebros, who, when combined with the Emissary, can activate the city-sized Transformer Fortress Maximus, leading to a massive battle where the Autobots, now joined by Fortress Maximus, face off against Galvatron, the Predacons, and the Decepticons for the fate of the Earth, culminating in a series finale which sees a final standoff between Omega Prime and Galvatron at the Earth's core. It's a fairly significant fight, the two characters at their maximum power, but via use of the Matrix Blade, Omega Prime ultimately defeats Galvatron once and for all, claiming victory for the Autobots, which leads to the resolution of the series, where the Autobots spend a little more time having fun on Earth before they return to Cybertron with the Predacon and Decepticon prisoners. Well, except Skybite, actually. He managed to evade getting arrested, and now he can live out the rest of his days being a happy little robot shark swimming in the oceans. Good for him. And with that, Robots in Disguise came to a close. It's certainly not the best Transformers show, and the fact that it was released purely as filler kind of gives it an awkward place among the larger franchise, even though it does have the notoriety of being the first reboot. But there were some fun ideas, some fun humor, and it gave kids an all-new version of the Transformers to capture their imaginations, even if its time in the spotlight was short-lived. But with the show having come to an end, the filler gap manufactured by Hasbro to keep fans engaged had passed. Now there was nothing left before the Hasbro and Takara cooperation effort, which was now officially known as Transformers Armada. While Robots in Disguise was technically the first reboot, it wasn't initially designed that way. But Armada, now that was designed and executed from day one with the intent that it would kick off an all-new continuity for Transformers going forward, introducing the 2000s definitive new versions of the franchise's most iconic characters, Optimus Prime, Megatron, and Starscream, along with a slew of all-new characters alongside them. Some of these characters would share names with pre-existing G1 characters, but that was only to maintain the trademarks, as these new characters shared no resemblance to their 80s counterparts. In any case, the summer of 2002 saw the launch of the Armada toy line, introducing all of these characters to toy shelves, placing Transformers firmly back into the hearts and minds of kids everywhere. With new design lead Aaron Archer having taken over in 2000, he ushered in a more simplified design for the cast of characters, drifting away from the more complex direction the toys were going in at the tail end of the Beast era, as well as a pretty significant return to form, as both factions were once again called Autobots and Decepticons. The toys also introduced an all-new gimmick, the Minicons. These smaller characters could be combined with the larger figure to activate new weaponry, armaments, you name it. The toy line was also joined by the Dreamwave comic run, which was headed by longtime Transformers comic writer Simon Furman. In fact, Armada was surrounded by a marketing blitz larger than anything the brand had done since G1. Transformers Armada was the start of a new era, and Hasbro was going all in. And it paid off, as kids journeyed to their TV screens en masse for August 23rd for the cartoon's debut, ushering in an all-new generation of Transformers.
Hi, my name's Rad, and I want to tell you about the Transformers, two races of mechanical beings from another world. There's the Autobots, the good guys, and then there's the Decepticons, a bunch of greedy bullies. They're all fighting over a smaller race of robots called the Minicons. The Minicons crash-landed on Earth thousands of years ago, and they're scattered all over the planet. The Decepticons want to enslave them and use them to increase their power, but the Autobots will put a stop to that evil plan.
Transformers.
Kicking off with a 3-part premiere, Transformers Armada centers on a handful of human characters, the trio Rad, Carlos, and Alexis, along with bullies-turned-friends Billy and Fred, as they discover a crashed Cybertronian ship and inadvertently reignite the war between the Autobots and the Decepticons. Introducing the Autobots, leader and father figure Optimus Prime, stern but capable Red Alert, the series' breakout character Hotshot, who's the young, hot-headed Kid Appeal character, and eventually the crane-wielding Smokescreen, along with their surveillance drone Laserbeak. Yeah, Laserbeak's the Autobots drone this time around. Then there's the Decepticons, ruthless leader Megatron, his treacherous second-in-command Starscream, as well as his underlings Demolisher and Cyclonus, some of whom are voiced by Beast Wars alumni, specifically Gary Chalk as Optimus Prime and David Kay as Megatron. This time, both sides are after the power-enhancing Minicons, who, just like in the toys, can unite with the larger Transformers to unlock new powers and abilities, introducing a slew of the bite-sized bots, the main trio being Highwire, Sureshock, and Grindor, who combine to form Perceptor, with most episodes of this early stretch focusing on the Autobots and Decepticons battling for control of yet another Minicon, an episodic approach that older fans really didn't like. Actually, you could go as far as to say that older fans hated this show. Not only was it far more geared towards kids, with all new robot designs quite different than anything seen before, but it was clear that the show was rushed to the airwaves. I mean, Armada ended up debuting a full 6 months before its Japanese counterpart, Legends of the Microns. As such, the animation was full of errors, almost to the degree of the original 80s cartoon. Some of the animation was even straight up not finished. The English dub was also quite rough, with there being plenty of instances of characters saying the wrong names, poor translations, plot plot holes that didn't exist in the Japanese version, all sorts of stuff. All of this put a damper on the show for older fans, and it became one of the few things the fandom agreed upon at the time. Transformers Armada was bad. But the show isn't aimed for them. It's aimed for the new kids. And to them, it succeeded in spades. The new stories and ideas were just as captivating to early 2000s kids as Beast Wars had been to 90s kids and G1 had been to 80s kids. It managed to introduce a whole new generation to the struggles of the Autobots and Decepticons, and while it was certainly lighter than the Beast era before it, that just led way to more funny moments.
Demolisher! Yes, at your service! Charge! Who will send you in as my backup, sir? No one, you fool! You're on your own! What about you, Megatron?
Don't worry, I've got things to do.
I'll take you on!
But as the show trucked into the holiday season, it did start playing into the serialized sandbox, with the Autobot-Decepticon conflict centering on a specific trio of minicons, Jetstorm, Sonar, and Runway, who could all combine to form the Star Saber, a weapon of ultimate power. So it's fortunate that it ends up in the hands of Hotshot, because it gives the Autobots a significant edge over the Decepticons. The only thing, its immense power makes Hotshot a little too overconfident, which is taken advantage of when the Decepticons call in some backup. First, there's the mercenary Scavenger, a ruthless warrior. Then there's the mysterious Sideways, who at first pretends to be an Autobot, a friend to Hotshot, until he suddenly betrays him, leaving the Star Saber to fall into the hands of the Decepticons, tipping the scales back in their favor. But surprisingly, while Sideways' betrayal is shocking, he isn't the only turncoat, as the other newly introduced character, Scavenger, is also revealed to be a traitor in the first episodes of the new year. Because here it's revealed that Scavenger is actually longtime friends with Optimus Prime. In fact, Optimus purposefully planted Scavenger among Megatron's ranks until the time came for him to rejoin the Autobots, becoming a regular member of Prime's team. While these roster changes were exciting, it did just kind of lead to more of the same, with the following episodes continuing to depict the Autobots and Decepticons battling over control of new minicons, introducing another slew of them, as well as introducing new Autobot Blur, who at first is an irritating new addition, not wanting to get along with anyone, but upon becoming friends with Hotshot, he's welcomed with open arms to the Autobot team. The Decepticons counter, though, with a new addition of their own, Thrust, a master tactician who keeps the Autobots on their toes, though he's not so great at improv, because when Optimus' second-in-command Jetfire arrives, the Autobots manage to outsmart him. And the arrival of Jetfire leads to a pretty exciting moment where he power links with Optimus Prime, forming the Jet Convoy mode, where the two combine their power to win the day. Some serialized elements become central here as well, like the battle centering on another trio of minicons, Downshift, Dirt Boss, and Mirage, who can combine to form the Skyboom Shield, the only thing that can rival the power of the Star Saber. But by far the most interesting element is the mystery surrounding Sideways, which is highlighted in an episode where he traps 3 of the human characters in cyberspace. It's here that his true agenda is hinted at, that he's answering to someone far more powerful than even Megatron. The tease of this ultimate evil is perhaps one of the most exciting things the show does in its first half, as longtime fans would no doubt instantly recognize this evil force the instant he appeared on screen. But the mystery surrounding Sideways doesn't end there, as eventually the Decepticons become suspicious of his true motives, ultimately exiling him from their cause. Though not before he turns into this weird static stuff and manages to survive being sliced apart by the Star Saber, which is kind of nuts. But after this, Sideways disappears for a while, only sometimes appearing to manipulate events to his unknown desires. But new characters join the fray in his absence, like the colossal new Decepticon Tidal Wave, the eager young cadet Sideswipe. Then there's Wheeljack, who's very different from the lovable scientist G1 introduced. This version of Wheeljack is an embittered soldier who was unintentionally left behind by Hotshot during the war on Cybertron. As such, he joined the Decepticons to seek revenge on his old friend. It's a fairly dark side story for a show like this, and shows that the series wasn't afraid to go a little deeper in its second half. All of these characters end up entwined in a search for a third trio of minicons, Skyblast, Payload, and astroscope, who can all combine into the much sought-after Requiem Blaster, a weapon even more powerful than the Starsaber or the Skyboom shield, which makes it all the more devastating when Megatron gets his hands on it, immediately using it to blast a hole through smokescreen. It's a pretty shocking scene, especially considering the power of the blaster ends up melting some of his metal. It's kinda grim. Though it is kind of undone in the next episode when it's revealed his spark was actually salvageable, allowing Red Alert to construct an all-new body for him, bringing him back, now as Hoist. So he's alive and well, kids. There's no need for you to cry like you did in '86, alright? But this ends up dovetailing into the most interesting aspect of this stretch of episodes, and perhaps the most interesting aspect of the entire show, its unique portrayal of Starscream. You see, at a certain point, Starscream ends up discovering that Megatron has been using him as bait, as a lure meant to be destroyed by the Autobots, only for the Decepticons to then destroy the Autobots in turn. A revelation that strikes right at Starscream's core. I mean, the dude's already pretty distrusting of Megatron, but this was the last straw. As such, Starscream abandons the Decepticons with the Starsaber in hand and joins the Autobots? Ooh, Starscream's gonna become an Autobot now? I mean, perhaps not entirely. His ideals and desire to destroy Megatron conflict with the Autobots greatly, but Alexis believes that he might eventually make the switch permanent. So there's that. In fact, Starscream's dynamic with the humans and Minicons actually allows him to gain a sense of humility. They're able to fill a hole in his spark. It's a very interesting new avenue to take Starscream down, but one that is a very natural evolution from the G1 incarnation. It also helps that some of it is pretty funny.
I don't need your sympathy. Now leave me alone. Even the Minicons have abandoned me now.
But unfortunately, Starscream's greater desire to destroy Megatron ends up getting the better of him, as he ends up stealing the Skyboom's shield and Starsaber from the Autobots, all of which feeds into a larger plan orchestrated behind the scenes by Sideways for still unknown reasons. But it is revealed that Megatron wishes to combine the Starsaber, the Skyboom shield, and the Requiem Blaster to create an ultimate weapon to destroy the Autobots once and for all. And now it seems that Starscream, despite his growth, is all but handing him the tools he needs on a silver platter. It was a dire prospect, but one that fans would have to wait to be resolved. I know, it's disappointing, but Armada went on hiatus after this, leaving fans in suspense until the final stretch of episodes would air in the fall of 2003. Weirdly enough, though, this cliffhanger made it clear that this show would become much more interesting than it was when it started, and while older fans were still apprehensive, the darker episodes coupled with Starscream's nuanced arc were slowly winning them over, even if only a little bit. Fans still had to wait for the show's return though, a return that felt like it was forever away. But in the meantime, a very exciting announcement came in the summer of 2003 regarding a potential future Transformers project. After many attempts to get something like it off the ground, it was finally announced in June of 2003 that producers Tom DeSanto and Don Murphy were officially working on a live-action Transformers movie. It didn't matter what generation of fan you were a part of. If you loved G1 or Beast Wars or this latest take in Armada, this was incredibly exciting news. The Transformers could return to the big screen for the first time in 20 years. Questions sparked across message boards. Which characters would make an appearance? Which continuity would it follow? Would it create an all-new continuity? Would the filmmakers completely dismiss all of Transformers that had come before and make something terrible like all of the video game movies that were coming out? It was far too early to tell, especially considering that the rights to the film hadn't even been purchased by a studio. But the prospect of seeing Optimus Prime in live action tearing down Decepticons was an exciting one, and it had fans everywhere keeping their eye out for further developments. In the meantime, however, fans were inundated with the continuing barrage of Transformers Armada toys, because as the line continued, it introduced plenty of the new characters featured in the show, as well as a repaint of Megatron now named Galvatron. On top of that, Hasbro tried their hand at a Lego knockoff called Built to Rule, where you could build Optimus Prime, Megatron, and others and have them face off until they inevitably fell apart because they did not hold together well. But perhaps the most enticing toy on the market was one that followed up on the ultimate evil tease in the show all those episodes ago, as Hasbro released the single largest official Transformers toy to date, Unicron. For the first time in 15 years, Unicron was given the spotlight, leading right into the cartoon's return on October 3rd. Finally, after the summer-long hiatus, kids could return to TV screens for Armada's last stretch of episodes, now given an additional subtitle to mark the occasion of Unicron's return.
The battlefield has shifted. The Autobots and Decepticons are racing through space to face the greatest evil the Transformers have ever encountered. They have entered the Unicron battles.
Transformers.
Following Starscream's betrayal, the series' return sees him essentially handing Megatron the pieces he needs to create the Hydra Cannon, a weapon of unimaginable power, though it's a choice that very quickly blows up in Starscream's face, because after a successful test run, Megatron turns the Hydra Cannon towards Earth to destroy the Autobot base and the entire planet in one fell swoop. And Starscream can't pull the trigger. Instead, Optimus and Jetfire launch an attack on the Decepticons, trying to free the three Minicon teams that make up the Hydra Cannon, until suddenly Thrust fires the weapon, leaving Optimus Prime to stand between it and the Earth, taking on the full brunt of its power. Ultimately, through Optimus's heroism, he saves the Earth and cripples the Decepticons' weapon, but the power of the Hydra Cannon takes its toll, and it's too much to bear. In a move that was as horrifying to 2000s kids as it was to 80s kids, Optimus Prime died. In a rather grim way, I might add, like the dude disintegrates. Surprisingly though, even Megatron is sad at Prime's passing. His nemesis is actually gone, and he doesn't know how to feel. While the Autobots do spend some time mourning the loss of their leader, there's too much at stake to stop now. As such, the Autobots, Minicons, and humans launch from the Earth, starting a race against the Decepticons to reach Cybertron for the final battle. And along the way, the Minicons, via use of the Matrix of Leadership, as well as their combined power, end up turning the tide in the Autobots' favor by miraculously bringing back Optimus Prime. It took a grand total of 3 episodes, but Optimus Prime returned. Even Megatron's glad he's back.
I never thought I'd say this, but it's good to have you back, Prime.
From here, the remaining episodes are a mad dash to the finish line, as another Minicon power surge ends up upgrading Hotshot, Red Alert, Demolisher, Starscream, and Megatron with new armor. And Megatron takes the opportunity to rename himself Galvatron. And eventually, the Autobots and Decepticons reach Cybertron for the final battle, waging war against each other one last time, all until the much-anticipated reveal of the ultimate evil. After plenty of teases after the toy launched over the summer of 2003, Unicron made his grand return. In fact, it was revealed that he'd been hiding in Cybertron's moon the entire time, feeding off of the hatred and war between the Autobots and Decepticons. Now he has enough strength to rise and destroy Cybertron in one fell swoop. As such, the Autobots and Decepticons must reach a truce to defeat Unicron, but Galvatron's pride stands in the way of uniting with the Autobots, making peace talks all but fruitless. That is, until Starscream intervenes. In a profound and satisfying end to his character arc, Starscream makes a plea for the Autobots and Decepticons to unite, and ultimately sacrifices his own life, sparking a truce between the warring factions. It's a fairly powerful moment, one that brings his entire arc to a bittersweet close. But it all leads to the multi-episode final battle against Unicron, the scale of which even rivals the finale to the 1986 movie, where together Autobots, Decepticons, and Minicons work as one to defeat the ultimate evil. Unfortunately, however, Galvatron still can't quite get over his hatred of Optimus Prime, resulting in a final battle between the two leaders, where they both take a pretty significant toll on one another. It is perhaps the most intricately animated sequence of the series, where the two characters use their best tools to rip into each other. It's both cool and yet slightly harrowing, as they both realize that their continued hatred is only fueling Unicron. That is, until Galvatron ultimately sacrifices himself to end the hatred between Autobot and Decepticon, robbing Unicron of his power, ultimately defeating the evil once and for all. Wow. Even Galvatron can make the heroic sacrifice in the end, learning the error of his ways. But with that, Unicron is defeated, the Autobots return the humans to Earth before going their separate ways, as now the Autobots and Decepticons work together to repair their homeworld. And that brings Transformers Armada to a close. While certainly a mixed bag of a show rife with animation errors and dubbing issues, it did manage to create a whole new generation of Transformers fans, all the while bringing plenty of Transformers ideas back to the fore, like the death of Optimus Prime and the rise of Unicron, all of which helped to bring the franchise to a new height of popularity. While older audiences never quite got into it, kids of the day were thrilled as it became their definitive version of the robots in disguise. But the adventure wasn't quite over yet, as while Armada was over, the cooperation between Hasbro and Takara wasn't. As to capitalize on the success of Transformers Armada, a sequel series and toy line debuted in the early weeks of... Kicking off immediately after the conclusion of Armada, Transformers Energon stormed onto toy shelves, this time around greatly scaling back the Minicon element to instead give each toy its own unique gimmick, not the least of which was the influx of combiners. The line brought back many of Armada's characters like Optimus Prime and Megatron, whilst also introducing a slew of newcomers. With these toys, Energon filled up shelves like nobody's business. It was also fairly well timed, as 2004 marked the 20th anniversary of Transformers, with plenty of toys harkening back to iconic designs from the franchise's history, though most of the familiar molds didn't share the familiar names. Like this one, sure looks like Wheeljack from G1, right? Well, he's actually named Downshift. So... But after 20 years and plenty of ups and downs along the way, fans geared up for the continuing adventures of the Autobots and Decepticons, both in the new comic published by Dreamwave Productions, as well as the new cartoon series. Debuting on January 31st, only a month and a half after Armada's conclusion, fans rushed to TV screens to witness the next chapter of the Transformers story.
Transformers Energon.
10 years have passed since the death of Galvatron and defeat of Unicron, and the Autobots and Decepticons have set up shop in multiple cities across the Earth and its solar system in a search for Energon. But while all has been peaceful, a new threat rises. Terrorcons, commanded by the ruthless Scorponok, and created by the mysterious Alpha Quintesson, or Alpha Q for short, who actually only has 4 faces instead of the traditional 5. But their plan is to gather as much Energon as they can to revive the defeated Unicron. Featuring the returning Autobots, Optimus Prime, who can now combine with his 4 drones, known as the Prime Force, to create a super mode. Then there's Hotshot and Jetfire, and they're joined by a plethora of new additions: Inferno, the Omnicron clone Skyblast, Strongarm, and Signal Flare, as well as the young, overeager Ironhide, the de facto main character. Along with main human ally Kicker Jones, the Autobots face off against the formerly peaceful Decepticons, Demolisher, Cyclonus, and Tidal Wave. Dreamwave, who are eventually joined by the reborn and reformatted Megatron. Yep, the dude decided to go back to his original name, which is cool, you know, it's his name, he can do what he wants with it. But all of them are battling for control of Energon to further their own individual agenda, amounting to what is a very disappointing follow-up to Armada, even for people who liked Armada. In fact, Transformers Energon is infamously regarded as perhaps the worst Transformers show ever. Is it the worst? Well, in a departure from Armada, Energon sees the combined use of traditional 2D animation and cel-shaded 3D animation for the robots. Now this does mean that the 2D animation has a lot more polish this time around, given that there's so much less of it, allowing it to avoid the glaring animation issues that plagued Armada. But the 3D animation leaves a lot to be desired. The character movements are stiff, the designs are blocky, and there's no room for facial expressions at all, meaning none of the robots can emote whatsoever. Which is kind of crazy considering Beast Wars 3D models were able to emote spectacularly well, and that was 8 years before this. On top of that, the plotting here is confusing at best and downright nonsensical at worst, with characters acting uncharacteristically different either from how they were portrayed in Armada, or even how they're portrayed within this very show. I mean, you got Kicker Jones, who's constantly flip-flopping between hating everyone and everything around him with every fiber of his being, to nearly breaking down into tears when a bot gets damaged in a battle. The Decepticon Cyclonus is seemingly randomly upgraded into Snowcat, making him a completely different character, though he does ski around space while yodeling, so there's that. Demolisher starts off as perhaps the most interesting of the Decepticons, being caught in a tug-of-war between his old master Megatron as well as his new friends the Autobots, which he kind of grew close to in the 10 Years of Peace. But all of that is completely thrown away when he gets an upgraded form and becomes completely loyal to Megatron. But the one who gets it the worst is undoubtedly Starscream. Early on in the show's run, he's revived by Alpha Q with no memories of his past, and eventually he falls under Megatron's command once again, completely undoing the most interesting aspect of Armada. It's made worse when you realize that the three main human characters from Armada actually make brief appearances here, and while they had a direct impact on Starscream's arc, they never once interact with him here, and as such, that aspect of the character is never mentioned again. But hey, as much as these moments are frustrating, the absurd and weird plotting does create a ton of weird, funny moments that make at least some of the show a little fun to watch.
There's no place left for you to run, Starscream.
You see, the great thing about that clip is that it still doesn't make sense even with context. But if there's one thing this show has going for it in its early stretch, is that it's moving at a clip. There's hardly a moment to breathe as the show quickly introduces 3 new Autobots, Rodimus, Prowl, and Landmine, who were all heroic warriors once, but are now under the thrall of Alpha Q. But perhaps Alpha Q isn't so bad. As it turns out, his homeworld was destroyed by Unicron, and he believes that if Unicron is revived, his home world can be restored, you know, through the magic of Energon or something. As such, Optimus Prime and Rodimus form an alliance, and together with Alpha Q, they begin to work to stop their common foe, Megatron. Megatron's not going to go down easily though, as he's now recruited a new Decepticon, the ruthless Shock Blast. And while Shock Blast escapes from an Autobot prison, he ends up murdering prison guard Padlock in cold blood, which is a devastating blow to Padlock's good friend Wing Dagger. And I know you have no idea what any of that means. All of this just brings Megatron a few steps closer to his own goal of reviving Unicron so that he can become the most powerful being in the universe. After a hiatus. Yeah, the show took a quick break after this. Gotta wait until the fall to see how everything gets resolved. Overall, the first stretch of Transformers Energon was nothing to write home about. Unless, of course, you wanted to write an angry letter about how much you hated it. Surprisingly, though, it wasn't just the cartoon that was losing points with fans, because the comic was actually doing worse. In fact, the comic got completely cancelled in the middle of its run. Now, this isn't exactly the comic's fault, because the publisher Dreamwave Productions actually went bankrupt in the middle of 2004. Thus, all of their comics, including their various Transformers runs, were brought to a swift end. So, if Transformers wanted to continue to have a presence at comic book stores, Hasbro would have to find a new publisher to carry on the license. But hey, at least Transformers Armada is still getting some love, as a video game was released for the PlayStation 2, allowing fans to take control of some of their favorite Armada characters in all new battles between the Autobots and Decepticons. The game surprisingly received fairly positive reviews. In fact, it was considered to be the best Transformers game to date. Though, to be fair, the competition wasn't all that stiff. But you know what? It gave Transformers fans an all-new experience with their favorite characters. At the same time, developments on another all-new experience were continuing as well. Following the 2003 announcement of a live-action Transformers movie, it was finally confirmed in July of 2004 that Paramount and DreamWorks had bought the film rights for Transformers, with Steven Spielberg set to be an executive producer on the upcoming movie. Oh, the first steps have been made. Oh man, this is really gonna happen, huh? This is real. The rights were bought, an executive producer was in place who just so happened to be the most famous director of all time, and now the search would begin for screenwriters and a director to bring Transformers to life on the big screen in the summer of 2006. 2 more years? Oh man, that feels like forever. I don't know if I can wait that long. But hey, you know what? For now, I at least have Transformers Energon to keep me going. I don't know if that's a good thing or not. Either way, Transformers Energon was back from its hiatus in September of 2004 for its second stretch of episodes. And this stretch maintains the breakneck pace the series has built up to this point, introducing a new character, Omnicron leader RC, as well as inexplicably reformatting Tidal Wave into Mirage. On top of that, Wing Dagger, the prison guard who lost his friend Padlock to Shock Blast, ends up getting an upgrade himself, becoming Wing Saber, who can now power link with Optimus Prime. As such, they become the latest of many power linking combinations that don't really amount to anything. But hey, whenever 2 characters combine, the animators can just use the same footage over and over again, saving them time and money. So there's that. But all of this is just background noise to the larger plot, because Megatron has successfully revived the headless body of Unicron, leading to a pretty massive battle where the Autobots, joined by Alpha Q in the severed head of Unicron, fight off against the Decepticons. There are tons of moments in this battle, like Shock Blast losing faith in Megatron and wanting to take over the Decepticons himself. Another moment sees a surge of Energon sent from Earth to overcharge Unicron's head to help Alpha Q. And on top of all of that, Optimus Prime gets to show off his impeccable planning skills.
Here's the plan. We'll attack Unicron and defeat Megatron. Let's do it. Right!
And then, seemingly out of nowhere, a massive rip in the fabric of reality opens up, sucking everything into it. Alpha Q and Unicron's head get sucked in, the Decepticons, along with Unicron's body, end up flying in behind them, and in pursuit, all of the Autobots make chase into the rift as well, in what is perhaps the most absurd and confusing turn of events in the entire show so far. I mean, Unicron has essentially been defeated, and everyone else has journeyed through the rift, yet we're only halfway through the 52-episode run, so what the hell happens from here? Well, upon arriving on the other side of the rift, the Autobots discover an entire other universe. One Alpha Q is taking immediate advantage of to create entire planets from raw Energon. Planets that the Decepticons want to plunder in order to once again revive Unicron. Yeah, even though we're in an entire other universe, the show is doing the same thing all over again. But hey, at least this time there are a couple moments where the robots' faces get to emote, though that only happens when they ditch the 3D models for a second and go for traditional 2D animation. There are also a couple new characters, like a new Autobot trio consisting of cheery old man Bulkhead, who fires his guns in perhaps the most bizarre way, along with Downshift and Cliffjumper. Then later, Guardian of Cybertron Omega Supreme enters the scene, though even with these inclusions, the show doesn't get any better. The longer the show goes on, there's just this lingering sense that nothing really matters. I mean, there's a moment where Inferno ends up making a pretty big sacrifice, but then he comes back as Roadblock, completely reversing the stakes. The newly introduced characters Downshift and Cliffjumper constantly have their names swapped when referred to in dialogue, making it very difficult to tell who is who. On top of that, there's an entire episode that straight up did not air in North America. It aired as part of the Japanese version Superlink, but for no discernible reason, that episode wasn't even dubbed in English, let alone released in English-speaking countries, and apparently it's actually one of the more pivotal episodes, so losing it creates a ton of plot gaps. But hey, at least they keep the episode where all the Autobots challenged each other to a race to kill some time, so that's cool. But it all eventually leads to the moment where the Decepticons successfully revive Unicron once again, and unite the body with its head, which also results in the death of Alpha Q. Shock Blast also dies at the hand of Unicron in a pretty gruesome way, but a lot of that is glossed over to make way for the ultimate final battle. It is here that Optimus Prime and Omega Supreme power-link to become Optimus Supreme. On top of that, they're even given a massive boost of power by Primus himself in his first television appearance as a glowing orb, which also upgrades several other Autobots with new paint jobs. With this power boost, Optimus Supreme grows to planet-size scale and faces off against Unicron in a final battle, leading to the moment where Optimus, along with all the other Autobots, stand together and destroy Unicron once and for all. For a show this absurd, it makes sense that the finale is bigger than anything that had come before. There was only one little thing. That wasn't the finale. Yeah, no, there are still 13 more episodes set to air in the new year. Unicron's dead, the story's over, and yet there's still more. Am I in purgatory? In any case, Transformers Energon entered another hiatus, during which there was another development regarding the highly anticipated live-action movie. As just before the year came to a close, it was officially announced that the search for a screenwriter had concluded, as John Rogers signed on to write the upcoming movie. His previous writing credits included The Core and Catwoman, so take that as you will. Although his involvement on the project was short-lived, as he only worked on the script until the early months of... as in February, John Rogers left the project due to scheduling conflicts. Of course, the split was amicable, seeing as Rogers was already aware he had another project that would conflict, and he did still manage to submit an initial draft of the script. But with his departure, writing duo Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi were set to take the reins and bring the film to the finish line. Their writing credits included plenty of episodes of J.J. Abrams' Alias, the upcoming film Mission Impossible 3, also directed by J.J. Abrams, as well as The Island, directed by Michael Bay. Time would have to tell if they were up to the task of bringing the Autobots and Decepticons to the big screen, but no matter what they did, I'd hazard to guess it'd be a lot better than what's going on the small screen right now, because Transformers Energon has set a pretty low bar. Regardless, as promised, the final 13 episodes of Transformers Energon began in the early months of 2005, but it begged a very simple yet important question from fans. If the story's essentially over, what are these final episodes even about? Well, despite Unicron's destruction, Megatron was able to survive, and makes his way to the catacombs of Cybertron where he discovers the ultra-powerful Super Energon. With it, he upgrades himself with a new paint job and calls himself Galvatron. Yeah, he did the upgrade into Galvatron thing again. In the same continuity as last time, mind you. Starscream also takes a dip in the Super Energon and gets a new paint job himself, but he decides to keep his original name. So, the Decepticons are also joined by new characters Six-Shot, twin brother of Shock Blast, and then there's the Guardians of the Super Energon, 3 combiners, 2 of which, Bruticus Maximus and Constructicon Maximus, join the Decepticons, and the third, Superion Maximus, joins the Autobots, all of whom are now fighting for control of Cybertron. And at the same time, the essence or soul of Unicron still survives in the vacuum of space, all of which amounts to a final stretch of episodes that are really quite tedious. I mean, if this were like a second season of an existing show, it'd be a lot more tolerable, but because this is an ending to a single 52-episode series, it just feels horribly tacked on and pointless. I mean, we're just spinning wheels at this point, doing the same things over and over and over again. But hey, you know what? Ironhide finds out that he has a couple of fans, so that's cool. And then they all die like 2 episodes later, so that's less cool. But all leads to the show's third final battle, as Optimus Prime and Galvatron receive massive power-ups from Primus and Super Energon respectively, and battle it out to the end. The scene even switches to traditional 2D animation, which just looks so much better, man. Although that actually isn't the final battle, because Galvatron ends up getting corrupted by the essence of Unicron, leading to a 4th final battle where Optimus Supreme has to face him down one last time. All to make way for the moment where, in the 11th hour, Primus uses Super Energon and traps both Galvatron and Unicron inside of a star that will light all of Alpha Q's planets for the foreseeable future. As such, thanks to Primus's ingenuity, at least relative to this show, Galvatron and Unicron are both defeated once and for all. The Autobots have won the day, Alpha Q's planets will survive, and finally, Transformers Energon has come to an end. Fans rejoiced at Energon's much-belated conclusion, as perhaps the darkest hour in the Transformers franchise had come to a close. It's over. It's really over. Fans were free of the thin plotting, one-dimensional characters, bad animation, and oh no, it's getting a sequel. Well, there's no way that one could be any worse, so we'll see. But with Energon's conclusion, fans were free of its shackles and were able to return to the developments regarding the live-action movie, which, as reported in April of 2005, had finally found itself a director, none other than Michael Bay. Certainly a director known for bombast, big explosions, and big spectacle, perhaps the perfect mixture of visual fidelity to bring these larger-than-life characters to the big screen. But the announcement didn't come without concern. Michael Bay's track record with critics was checkered at best. There were a plethora of negative reviews around his latest outings Pearl Harbor and Bad Boys 2, but hopes were high that a dose of Bayhem might be exactly what Transformers was looking for. Though since it took so long to find a director, the release date for the film shifted from 2006 all the way back to July 4th, 2007, where it would stay. But with some of the key creatives now in place, the film was set to move forward at a solid pace throughout the remainder of 2005. Until then, the third of Hasbro and Takara's cooperation efforts was to hit the airwaves, Transformers Cybertron, the conclusion to what was now being called the Unicron Trilogy, so named because of Unicron's titular involvement in all three shows. While Transformers Energon was perhaps the most reviled piece of Transformers media out there, there was some hope that Transformers Cybertron could bring it home. One decent sign was that the corresponding toy line was far simpler in its approach. Instead of the myriad of confusing gimmicks in the Energon line, Cybertron unified everything so that each toy had its own cyber key that'd give each figure special upgrades and weapons. All of which led to July 2nd, 2005, where Transformers Cybertron began with its third episode. Yeah, the start of the show aired out of order. The first 2 episodes didn't air until 2 months after the show started, which isn't confusing at all. In any case, fans returned to televisions in the summer of 2005 for what promised to be a big and bold conclusion to the Unicron Trilogy.
Wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons.
Could that be the best Transformers theme yet? I mean, it's the perfect mixture of mid-2000s cheese and over-the-top sensibilities. You know, it's a great way to start every episode. In any case, another 10 years have passed since the conclusion of Transformers Energon, and the star that Primus formed to imprison Unicron has collapsed, forming a black hole that threatens to destroy all life in the universe. As such, the Autobots and Decepticons battle in search of the Cyber Planet Keys, that, when united with the Omega Lock, will have the power to close the black hole and save the universe. At least, that was how the show was established in North America, because the Japanese version of the show, Galaxy Force, wasn't actually designed as a sequel to the first 2 series. It was supposed to be its own thing, which is no doubt caused by the fact that this show is animated by a different studio than the previous 2. But in an effort to tie all 3 shows together, Hasbro made the decision that the black hole was directly tied to Unicron from the previous 2 shows, so that's what we're going with. Which leaves us with one important question. Is this show better than Transformers Energon? Oh, absolutely. While it still uses a mix of 2D and 3D animation, the 3D aspects are far less of an eyesore. The designs are more interesting, the animation is smoother, while the characters are still unable to emote, they're far more pleasing to look at. On top of that, while this one is probably not the best of the Unicron Trilogy, it's certainly the most over-the-top and cheesiest one of the 3. I mean, do I need to bring back that theme song? Transformers Cybertron brings in a bunch of new and returning characters, some of whom are even introduced by Optimus Prime at the start of every episode.
Hotshot, Jetfire, Vector Prime, Landmine, Scattershot, Optimus Prime, Transform and roll out!
But that's not all, as the Autobots also consist of Red Alert and Overhaul, as well as Minicon's Jolt, Reverb, 6-Speed, as well as Vector Prime's own Minicon, Safeguard, and they're joined by main human trio Kobe, Bud, and Lori. They're all battling the Decepticons, consisting of Starscream, Thundercracker, Mudflap, and their leader Megatron, who in one of many discontinuities from the previous show, is both free from his imprisonment and back to being Megatron with an all-new look, though it is said that his armor is forged from Unicron. So there is that. But even then, that's just where it starts, because the quest for the Cyber Planet Keys takes the Autobots and Decepticons across the galaxy to different planets, introducing perhaps the most diverse cast of characters ever in a Transformers show. First up is Velocitron, the Speed Planet, introducing Override, Breakdown, and Clocker to the Autobots, as well as Ransack, Crumplezone, and Dirt Boss to the Decepticons. Though Velocitron is where the show's pacing issues start rearing their ugly head. While this show doesn't repeat its plot 3 times like Energon did, it still struggles to fill 52 episodes, as this early stretch features no less than 6 episodes on one single race to win the first Cyber Planet Key. After that, the show journeys to the Jungle Planet, a world that consists of entirely animalistic Transformers and a nod towards Beast Wars. Snarl and Backstop join the Autobots, while Scourge, Undermine, and Brimstone join the Decepticons in the battle for the second Cyber Planet Key. It is also here that Overhaul, despite not being a native of the Jungle Planet, ends up finding the beast within and transforms into Leo Breaker, a lion who has the ability to combine with Optimus Prime to create a savage claw mode, which is greatly devastating to Megatron. The third Cyber Planet Key ends up being located on Earth, bringing the conflict back to home soil, which not only introduces new Autobots Evac and Crosswise, but it also sees Starscream return to his more treacherous roots, as early in the show's run he ends up abandoning Megatron's cause to further his own agenda, eventually being joined in his quest by Sideways, leading to a couple episodes where Starscream actually awakens his own army of Decepticons, threatening to take over the Earth. It's one of the rare moments where Starscream is actually able to be intimidating, which is pretty cool. It also leads to the introduction of Lugnuts and Thunderblast, the latter of whom ends up joining Megatron's team, all of which leads to the midpoint of the series, where during a sizable battle against the Decepticons, Autobots Hotshot, Red Alert, and Scattershot are viciously gunned down by a Cyber Key-infused Megatron. Yeah, they get pretty banged up, in a scene that was kind of scary to fans of the show, especially considering the show would go on a short hiatus after this, leaving fans on their toes, at least until the show returned early in the following year. It is here that after being gravely injured by Megatron, Hotshot, Red Alert, and Scattershot wind up getting revived and upgraded into new super powerful forms, becoming the Cybertron defense team for the remainder of the show. But they're not the only ones with upgrades, as the show eventually introduces Wingsaber, who can combine with Optimus Prime to create an ultra powerful super mode. Although weirdly enough, this show presents that idea as completely new to both characters, despite the fact that they combined a ton during the events of Energon. But again, this wasn't originally a sequel, so. Eventually, after having retrieved 3 of the 4 Cyber Planet Keys, the Autobots and Decepticons return to Cybertron for the next phase in their great battles. It is here that the first 3 keys are united with the Omega Lock and are able to reveal Primus himself. While Primus did appear in Transformers Energon as a disembodied sphere of light, this show sees Cybertron itself transform into the Transformer God, who, with the power of the first 3 keys, is able to keep the black hole at bay for the time being whilst the Autobots journey to retrieve the 4th and final Cyber Planet Key. Fans would have to wait a while before the 4th Cyber Planet Key was revealed though, as the show went on a brief hiatus over the summer of 2006. Well, in North America anyway. Galaxy Force in Japan had already been over since September 2005, so you could go ahead and watch the conclusion in Japanese if you wanted to. But in the meantime, over the following months of 2006, developments continued regarding the live-action Transformers film. After the hiring of the principal crew, casting had begun for the human characters set to take the stage. First up, at the end of March 2006, Shia LaBeouf was cast as Spike Witwicky, or as the production was calling him, Sam Witwicky. Following that, Josh Duhamel joined in April alongside Tyrese Gibson, Rachel Taylor, Bernie Mac, and Megan Fox in the following weeks, all of which led to the start of principal photography in the spring of 2006. The movie was now officially underway, a fact that generated a lot of fan excitement, most notably expressed with an influx of fan videos hitting the internet, like this one titled Optimus Prime Real, where Optimus Prime was in fact real. But even with all of this fan excitement, it all materialized in the form of one simple question. Who was going to voice the robots? Petitions and movements began almost immediately on message boards after the movie's announcement and continued strongly throughout 2006. While there were plenty of ideas and notions that fans put forward that were immediately shut down by tons of other fans, there was one thing that they unanimously agreed on without question. Frank Welker should voice Megatron, and of course, Peter Cullen should return to voice Optimus Prime. While the producers and Michael Bay certainly heard the cries of fans loud and clear, it was uncertain whether or not the legacy voice actors would actually reprise the roles. It was entirely possible and potentially likely that the film would go for a bigger named celebrity, with word of Liam Neeson being eyed to voice Optimus Prime, which would certainly be a different choice. But there was some hope, as some of the original voice cast were able to get at least an audition with Michael Bay to see if they really could step back into these roles after 20 years away. But time would have to tell if their casting was to become a reality. As the summer continued, the human cast expanded with Kevin Dunn and John Turturro, and on top of that, set photos started getting out of the Autobot and Decepticon vehicles over the following weeks, fueling tons of discussion on message boards. Then, eventually, in June of 2006, this teaser poster was released online. Even after the casting news and production updates, after the slow outpouring of set photos, this is what finally made the film feel real. They were really making a live-action Transformers movie, and hopefully, fingers crossed, it was going to be good. All of this led to June 29th, 2006, where, in the lead-up to its theater debut in front of Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest, the first official teaser trailer for Transformers was released online.
7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have.
This is a teaser in every sense of the word. It doesn't show much. In fact, it doesn't really show anything at all. What it does show is a Mars rover mission that was officially classified as a failure. But in truth, the rover successfully landed on Mars, but it encountered something else. Certainly intriguing, many felt that the teaser was disappointing. They wanted to see Optimus Prime blast Decepticons, damn it. Plenty of comparisons were made to the much more expansive and revealing Spider-Man 3 teaser that released around the same time. But in a weird turn of events, the theater reactions told a very different story. While there were plenty of confused stares and glances during most of the teaser, as soon as the Transformers title appeared, theaters erupted into cheers. Cheers that grew even louder when it was followed by the reveal of the Autobot logo. It was clear that there was a lot of excitement for Transformers, even if audiences and fans were eager to see just a little bit more. Whoa, breaking news, what's going on? What happened? They've done it. They've listened to the pleas of the fans and have cast Peter Cullen as the voice of Optimus Prime. After all of the hubbub surrounding his casting, the news was made official. After nearly 20 years away from the role, Peter Cullen was finally set to return. This was incredibly exciting news for fans everywhere. Their prayers had been answered. Optimus Prime was going to sound like Optimus Prime. Optimus was going to have flames on him, though. So, this image caused perhaps an equally sized negative storm online. But I don't know, Optimus has been taking on different forms for 20 years. He was even a gorilla that one time, so this isn't too bad. Despite the plethora of negative fan opinions online, production on the film continued strongly through the rest of the summer, and the longer it went, the more it became clear that nothing on this movie was going to be kept a secret. As much as fans said they hated the design changes, they still found a way to get access to plenty of concept designs for the robots, plenty of set photos, and even the entire script for the movie? Yeah, the whole script leaked at one point. It's crazy. One way or another, fans were going to get their hands on stuff they weren't supposed to. But maybe it's just a sign of how interested and invested they actually were. Maybe in a more toxic way, but interested nonetheless. The movie was still a long way out though, and fans needed something Transformers related to occupy their time. So I guess it was fortuitous that Transformers Cybertron returned to the airwaves in the fall for its final string of episodes. Right as the show returned, the quest for the final cyberplanet key took the Autobots and Decepticons into an alternate universe. A universe where the planet Gigantian rests, the resting place of the final cyberplanet key. It is here that the show introduced Transformer giants to the cast, adding Metroplex and Quick Mix to the Autobots and Menasor to the Decepticons, who, for one reason or another, were all Scottish?
What is going to go wrong in this build while I'm around, you wee creatures?
Please hurry! Our friends are in trouble!
Fear not, lass. Your friends won't be in trouble for long. We'll have them out of this jam in no time at all.
That's crazy. But overall, Gigantian is quite the interesting place. As the story continued, it revealed that the residents of Gigantian were so obsessed with construction that they covered their entire planet with cities, leading to them building a whole new layer of planet around it to build new cities. Then they did it again and again and again until like 10 or so levels of cities were built. I mean, that's just a crazy, insane concept. It doesn't make much sense. Where are they getting all of these resources? But hey, this is a show where the Autobots and Decepticons traveled to another universe to get a magic key to destroy a black hole. So, anything goes, really. During the adventure on Gigantian, however, the Autobots and Decepticons are locked in yet another battle. One that results in an embarrassing defeat for Megatron, which ultimately leads to the moment where Megatron's rage-filled soul manages to draw power directly from the Omega Lock to become Galvatron.
I am invincible! I am Galvatron! New look, same old lines.
Hell yeah, all three shows in the Unicron Trilogy did the Megatron turns into Galvatron thing. We got the trifecta. It's also here on Gigantian that the show introduces an all-new version of Soundwave, who instead of being a cassette player, he's more of a modernized hip DJ.
I'm dropping out of this session. I'll be back to check out the final mix. Sample you later.
But all of this leads into the final stretch of episodes, where the Autobots finally retrieve the fourth cyberplanet key and must return home to destroy the black hole. As such, Vector Prime creates a portal back, but because they're traveling to another universe, it stretches his powers to the breaking point, resulting in him sacrificing himself so the others can get back home. Goodbye, Vector Prime. You truly were the master of time. Or whatever your deal was. Ultimately, this leads to the finale of the series, where, in a heroic and climactic moment, members from across the entire galaxy unite for one final stand against Galvatron and the Decepticons. It's a fairly significant moment. After visiting all of these places individually, seeing the entire galactic force of Cybertron come together for one final battle is pretty cool. And it also gives this series a feeling of finality to it. And with the combined power of all four cyberplanet keys, Primus is finally able to create a massive weapon to utilize their combined power and destroy the black hole once and for all. Yeah, there we go. Black hole's gone, but the show's not over yet, as the still vengeful Galvatron ends up waging a final battle against Optimus Prime. A battle that, while it isn't as physically large as the finale to Energon, it is perhaps the most expansive standoff between these two characters. They're going at each other with everything they've got, with all the weapons at their disposal, and eventually help arrives from the late Vector Prime, giving Optimus his sword, leading to the moment where Transformers becomes the most anime it has ever been.
At last the universe will be free of your
Is it super over the top and cheesy? Yes. Is it kinda ridiculous? Sure. Is it a lot of fun? Hell yeah! And it ultimately results in Galvatron's defeat, as he crumbles away into dust. Doesn't get any more final than that. Which all leads into the final episode of the series, which, in an interesting move, is all resolution. The finale ties up all of the loose ends, bringing everything to a close, even including brief cameo appearances by some characters from Armada and Energon, which is nice. And with that, Transformers Cybertron came to an end, and with it, the Unicron Trilogy as a whole. While certainly not a spotless trilogy of shows, it was a defining era for Transformers, one where the franchise wasn't afraid to go in completely new directions, introducing tons of new concepts, whilst also bringing plenty of previous ideas back to the fore. Its conclusion marked the end of an era, as the close collaboration between Hasbro and Takara came to an end here. Now the two companies would return to the business model of times past, where they would create their own shows independent of one another. Time would have to tell what Hasbro's next foray into Transformers TV was going to look like, but fans weren't entirely worried about that just yet, because with Transformers Cybertron now over, there was nothing left between now and the summer 2007 release of the live-action Transformers movie. Production on the film finished in October 2006, at least on the live-action side of things. The voice work still had a long road, and fans could actually have an impact on at least one line in the movie via the Make Prime Speak contest. The contest allowed fans to submit and vote on a specific line of dialogue that Peter Cullen would say as Optimus Prime in the finished film. At the end of the day, most of the submissions were lines from previous versions of Transformers, most notably the 1986 movie, so originality was definitely not top priority. As such, the quote that ultimately won out was, "Freedom is the right of all sentient beings," taken directly from the original Optimus Prime toy box in 1984. Eventually, however, all led to December 20th, 2006, where, playing before Night at the Museum in theaters, fans got to see the teaser trailer they were all waiting for.
Whatever fell out of the sky ended up right behind me here.
It sounded like several sonic booms.
Finally revealing actual footage from the movie, the teaser trailer gave audiences the first official look at the spectacle and scope that Transformers promised to offer, as well as, much to the excitement of fans, the first glimpses of some of the robots, most notably the one and only Optimus Prime. After much hubbub was abound regarding the leaked Optimus designs, once it was seen in motion, at least in glimpses, opinions started to shift. The movie ultimately looked massive in scope, perhaps bigger than anything Transformers had ever done before. Excitement ramped up for the blockbuster film as the teaser trailer became the most downloaded teaser on Yahoo to date. People wanted to know more. People wanted to see more. Thankfully, more was coming as the clock turned to the year. In the early months of 2007, marketing began to pick up in short bursts, beginning with an Empire magazine special which featured the best look at Optimus Prime yet, as well as interviews from the cast, producers, and director Michael Bay about the scale and approach to the movie. At the same time, eagle-eyed fans managed to spot a website and password hidden in the film's teaser trailer. If you went to the website and logged in with the given password, you'd get access to an alternate reality game set in the film's universe, following mysteries and adventures of the in-universe government division known as Sector 7, an ARG that lasted all the way until the film's release. On top of that, the second voice cast member was added, as it was confirmed that Hugo Weaving was going to voice Megatron. As much as fans were clamoring for Frank Welker to join the cast alongside fellow Transformers alumni Peter Cullen, Hugo Weaving had more than proven himself as being capable of taking on villainous roles, so perhaps it would all ultimately work out. Marketing began to ramp up in the spring months, starting with new posters revealing fantastic looks at Optimus Prime and Megatron, followed by a couple of TV spots at the tail end of March. Promotion also began for a tie-in video game published by Activision set for release around the same time as the movie, with images popping up every few days leading right into the first trailer of its own, showing that even the video game was going to have a little bit of bayhem. All of this only confirmed what fans had suspected. Transformers was going to be big. It was going to be an event unlike anything the franchise had seen before, a fact fact bolstered by a marketing push that wasn't just the biggest Transformers had seen, but one of the bigger marketing pushes for movies in general. And it all led to the release of an all-new theatrical trailer on May 17th, kicking off the final marketing push in a big way. Across 2.5 minutes, this trailer shows off more footage for fans to chew on than anything that had been released so far. I mean, it's chock full of so much great imagery, some fun humor, and of course, some fantastic glimpses of the robots. Not to mention all of the moments that just evoke this sense of awe. I mean, did you see the one bit where that one guy just like flips around and turns into a plane in the blink of an eye? That was crazy. Or how about when Optimus Prime drove up and started transforming and he made the classic transformation sound? That was awesome.
It's a robot, like a super advanced robot. It's probably Japanese.
Or how about the one bit where the one guy goes through the bus and then he tackles Optimus? That was so cool, dude. Transformers quickly became one of the most anticipated movies of the summer, which was doubly impressive considering it was releasing amongst a sea of sequels. I mean, sure, Transformers was an established property, but one that hadn't had nearly this much attention since G1 ended in 1987. While die-hard fans were still critical of the design changes, it was clear that Transformers was going to take over the box office once it hit theaters in July. The movie even moved up its release by one day, moving from July 4th to July 3rd, allowing audiences to see it just that much sooner. The corresponding toy line also finally hit store shelves, instantly dominating the toy market. Even though Transformers had had a presence for the last 20 years, this was a massive return to form, with toy sales reaching or even surpassing the success the franchise had in the 80s. Transformers was back. It was in the public consciousness. People were excited to see the movie. They were buying the toys, watching the TV spots. There was even a massive product tie-in blitz, probably thanks in part to businessman Michael Bay, featuring ads from Chevrolet, Pontiac, basically anything GM, to Mountain Dew, and even Burger King.
Welcome to Burger King. Can I take your...
A Whopper. No cheese, no onions.
With the amount of buzz surrounding the movie, Paramount and DreamWorks had enough confidence to preemptively begin setting the stage for a sequel, aiming for a 2009 release. Hey man, I'm not complaining, I'll be there. I'll even jump over to GameStop as Transformers the Game has now hit store shelves. Fans got the chance to battle Autobots and Decepticons with the movie characters in an explosively action-packed game that not only followed many of the events of the movie, but also expanded on it, featuring characters like Shockwave in massive boss battles. Though reviews for the video game were kind of mixed. As much as it had its moments, it wasn't really hitting a home run with critics. But that was hardly a blemish on the franchise's popularity. People were still incredibly excited to head out to theaters, and in the days leading up to the movie's release, early reviews started to come through. While there were some detractors among critics, plenty cited the spectacular visual effects, action sequences, as well as a fun, likable performance by Shia LaBeouf as some of the movie's highlights. And it was all audiences needed to hear. It was never going to be an awards contender, but all signs pointed to the film being a greatly entertaining ride. And it was thus that finally, after 21 years away, Transformers made its return to the big screen on July 3rd, 2007. After the massive marketing blitz, the tie-ins, the video games, it was finally time for audiences to transform and roll out to theaters for the blockbuster event of the summer.
Before time began, there was the Cube.
I don't think there could possibly be a better way to open this movie. I mean, you got Peter Cullen back as Optimus Prime. Of course, that's the very first thing you show off. And it's so great hearing him back in the role, as he lets us in on the backstory this movie will be built on. As it turns out, the Cybertronian race was created by the Allspark, aka the Cube. Its immense power also gave way to the Autobot-Decepticon war, forcing it to be ejected from Cybertron into the vastness of space.
And just when all hope seemed lost, message of a new discovery drew us to an unknown planet called Earth. But we were already too late.
And with that, we're off to the races for a massive, exciting adventure with some likable characters, big set pieces, and a little bit of Michael Bay trademark manic comedy sprinkled in for good measure. This movie follows the adventures of Sam Witwicky, who begins the movie by purchasing a 1976 Camaro so he can improve his chances with the hot girl at his school, Michaela. Little does he know, his new car is actually his wingman.
wrong with your radio?
I'm driving home tonight.
On top of that, Michaela is a relatively progressive character. I mean, she's a mechanic, she's good with cars, she's far more capable than Sam, and yet she hides that part of herself because of systemic misogyny. Sure, the way the movie's shot completely betrays all of those notions, but at least the script's a tiny bit progressive, right? Although one thing that comes through on all sides is that there is a fair amount of charm between these characters, you know? They're likable.
You think I'm shallow? Huh?
You think you're sure? No. I think there's a lot more than meets the eye with you.
Okay.
Now, while initial results do seem promising for Sam's love life, he soon discovers that his new car is also more than meets the eye. It's moments like that stand out. Every once in a while, the movie slows down to just be in awe of the Transformers, of their scale, of the effects. It's a side of the movie that's highlighted quite a bit in the military subplot, though here it's all in service of terror. It's here that we're introduced to Lennox, Epps, and their whole team of soldiers who are on the run after what is perhaps the best scene of the movie. It all starts with this mysterious helicopter. No one knows where it came from, it doesn't speak, so no one knows what it's after. All anyone knows is that it shouldn't exist, because it was shot down 3 months before. All of which builds to its touchdown at the military base. The tension rises higher and higher as the soldiers grow more and more terrified, the longer it remains silent, all leading to... While the Autobots are awe-inspiring, the Decepticons are terrifying and immensely destructive. But this is only the beginning, as this Decepticon, Blackout, unleashes his pet Scorponok to chase down Lennox and his team. This is perhaps the other best scene of the movie. I mean, sure, it's really just a bunch of military propaganda and soldiers yelling jargon at each other, but damn if it isn't awesome, dude. I mean, once you put that Steve Jablonsky score behind it, I mean, come on.
Attack direction west! You're cleared hot!
But there's also a third plotline going on in this movie, as we also follow a couple analysts trying to decode the source of these mysterious attacks. Not just the destruction of the base at the start, but also the infiltration on Air Force One by Frenzy. This plotline mostly focuses on Maggie and her hacker friend Glenn, as they try to decode the secret message embedded in the signal that hacked the US network. Yeah, it's a bunch of technical nonsense, but it links them to the Wiki story, as well as gives hints towards Sector 7 and Project Iceman, whilst also leading to some manic and over-the-top Michael Bay humor.
Get off my grandmama's carpet! She don't like nobody on the carpet, especially police!
But the plot stuff isn't that important, come on. It's just a vehicle to give us awesome Transformer action. This guy, Barricade, is after Sam because of the information Frenzy discovered, leading to an action sequence between him and Sam's car, Bumblebee. But you only get a taste of big robot action here, as most of the scene instead focuses on Frenzy attacking Sam, which is followed by Michaela, the far more capable character, taking Frenzy out with a saw and cutting off his head. But this is where things get real. After Bumblebee dispatches Barricade, he ends up becoming a Chevy commercial. I mean, he takes on the form of an all-new 2007 Camaro.
What?
Okay, now this is where things get real. The single biggest turning point in the entire movie. It's here that 4 meteors fall towards the Earth, crashing in explosively destructive style before taking on the appearance of GM product placement. But man, if that Steve Jablonsky score doesn't bring it home, man, I mean... After all 4 arrivals have taken on their disguises, they meet up with Sam, Michaela, and Bumblebee. And it's here that this movie shows off perhaps its most breathtaking visual effects sequence. We watch as all 5 vehicles break apart, shift around, and come back together to create the massive robots, all in a seamless long shot. The visual effects work done by ILM and Digital Domain really brings these robots to life in ways that were near unparalleled at the time. I might be a little biased, but this is cool.
My name is Optimus Prime. We are autonomous robotic organisms from the planet Cybertron. But you can call us Autobots for short.
Autobots.
Introducing the Autobots Optimus Prime, Jazz, Ironhide, Ratchet, and giving a formal introduction to Bumblebee, the movie finally lays its cards on the table, tying together the Wiki history to the discovery of Megatron in the Arctic, the quest for the cube, and how it links to Sam's grandfather's glasses, which can lead the Autobots to the Allspark before the Decepticons can reach it.
How'd you know about his glasses?
eBay.
Of course, getting the glasses won't be easy because we need some antics in and around Sam's house first. From the bumbling of the Autobots outside to the hilarity of Sam's parents stumbling on him while he's trying to hide the Autobots. You really get it all.
You are so defensive. Were you masturbating?
Judy.
Was I No, Mom!
Zip it, okay?
No, I don't masturbate.
That's not something for you to bring up. That's a father and son thing.
Father-son.
The parents, very irritating.
Yeah.
Can I take them out?
Ironhide, you know we don't harm humans. What is with you?
Well, I'm just saying we could. It's an option.
And of course, we get the formal introduction of Sector 7 and Agent Simmons.
We're the government. Sector 7.
Never heard of it.
Never will.
And this ties back to the setup from the Analyst plotline, revealing that there's a government group that knows about the Transformers, at least to some extent. And of course they'd want to get their hands on one, leading to an action set piece where Sector 7 chases down Optimus Prime, all before eventually capturing Bumblebee. It's a fairly significant moment. Maybe it's the music carrying so much of the weight, but even Shia LaBeouf's performance sells the capturing of his friend pretty well. This whole scene even adds a little bit of depth to Michaela's character, revealing she learned how to fix cars by joining her father on his illegal escapades, all before turning him in, sending him to prison. This script really likes Michaela, dude, I don't know what to tell you. But now Bumblebee is captured, and while the Autobots certainly have the power to free him, Optimus decides against it so as not to harm the humans. Now that's Optimus Prime right there. All of this eventually leads to all of these plot lines coming together at the Hoover Dam. That's right, our main heroes Sam and Michaela are now joined by Maggie, Glenn, Lennox, Epps, Agent Simmons, Defense Secretary Keller, alongside new addition Tom Banachek, who gives them all the information Sector 7 has at its disposal. All of our characters are brought to the same page and are also introduced to the frozen Decepticon leader Megatron. Turns out after the discovery by Sam's great-grandfather, Sector 7 managed to acquire Megatron, reverse engineering him to create all modern Earth technology. Although Sector 7 arrogantly refers to Megatron as NBE-1. Yeah, he isn't going to be happy about that one.
Anyway, Mr. NBE-1 here, aka Megatron, that's what they call him. He's pretty much the harbinger of death, wants to use the cube to transform human technology to take over the universe. That's their plan.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. You guys know where it is, don't you?
Yes, they do know where the Allspark is, because it's also inside Hoover Dam. Man, Sector 7's got everything, dude. But its location here is no longer a secret, as the Autobots managed to locate it via use of the glasses now in their possession. And this is probably my favorite scene in the movie. It's just a scene where the Autobots talk, they discuss their next move, and despite reservations by Ironhide, Jazz, or even Ratchet, they all follow Optimus Prime because he knows what's best. Hell, Optimus even says the line from that Make Prime Speak contest.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. You all know there's only one way to end this war. We must destroy the cube. If all else fails, I will unite it with the spark in my chest.
But the Autobots aren't alone, as thanks to Frenzy, the Decepticons discover the location of the Allspark as well, introducing Starscream, Bonecrusher, Devastator, or more accurately Brawl, but whatever, as well as Barricade and Blackout, who we met earlier. It's all building up, folks. The Autobots and Decepticons are converging on the Allspark, and it's left to the newly freed Bumblebee to see that the cube is safely shrunk down and kept safe from Decepticon hands. But they don't have much of a head start as the Decepticons strike Hoover Dam, destroying the power cells, keeping Megatron frozen, allowing him to break free after millennia of entrapment. Ooh boy, really sticking it to Sector 7 on that one, aren't you, Megs? Now, finally, things ramp up towards the third act, kicking off with a little bit of action as the Analyst, joined by Secretary Keller and Agent Simmons, fight off against Frenzy, all before Frenzy accidentally kills himself.
Oh shit.
But the real stuff comes from the big robots, kicking off with Bone Crusher and Optimus Prime going at it at 80 miles an hour. Like, look at this, these transformations are so awesome! And capping it off with Bone Crusher crashing through a bus. Dude, this movie's so cool, although it is a little violent at times. After that, the action finds its way to Mission City, which is essentially just Los Angeles, but it's here that the battle converges, beginning with Starscream firing missiles at a Furby truck and blasting off Bumblebee's legs. Again, another solid moment. Also thanks to the score, but also the human performances. It's difficult to even comprehend getting emotional about something that isn't there, but the performances sell it pretty well. But now, finally, after nearly 2 hours, the movie delivers on its promise of wall-to-wall Transformer action for the final 30 minutes of the movie. And let's be clear. I get it if someone were to say this is overwhelming or nauseating or incomprehensible. I do. I really do get it. But... this is just awesome, I don't know what to tell you. Even the arrival of Megatron is cool. I mean, the dude's massive, he's intimidating, the Autobots are scared of him, and justifiably so, as within moments of arriving on the scene, Megatron easily kills Jazz.
You want a piece of me? You want a piece? No! I want two!
Rest in peace, Jazz. Or rest in pieces, I guess. But nothing compares to the arrival of Optimus Prime. After having been set back by Bone Crusher, he finally joins the fray in heroic style.
Megatron Prime!
Dude. That's Optimus Prime in live action, and he's fighting Megatron. Does it get any better than that? No. I'm just going to stop you right there. No, it does not. Even Starscream gets a bit of action, swooping down to fight off against Ironhide and Ratchet, all before swiftly taking off in this awesome transforming shot from the trailer. Bumblebee also gets some time to shine, even without his legs, as attached to a tow truck driven by Michaela, he deals the final blows to take out Brawl. Which leads to this moment where Sam is cornered on the edge of a building as Megatron and Starscream converge. And let's give some credit to Hugo Weaving voicing Megatron. I mean, as much as the fans were disappointed Frank Welker didn't get to come back for the movie, Hugo Weaving definitely gives Megatron a more than menacing voice that perfectly fits this new design, despite Hugo Weaving apparently having no real love for playing this part. But that's fine, he still sounds cool.
Is it fear or courage that compels you, fleshling?
Now, after a quick save from Optimus Prime and a bit more destruction right after, we get the final two-pronged climax of the movie, where on one side, Lennox, Epps, and the other soldiers get to face off one-on-one against Blackout. And through the epically awesome US military might that is so cool and not at all problematic on a foreign policy level, they are able to take out Blackout once and for all. Lennox even gets the final blow. It's honestly kind of satisfying. But it's the other side of the coin that's the real moneymaker for fans. The showdown between Optimus Prime and Megatron. Although most of it's in the background of the Blackout stuff, so you don't see it all that well. But you get glimpses in between shots of Starscream taking out F-22s. You get glimpses! But it all leads to the final moment where Optimus begs Sam to push the cube into his chest, to sacrifice himself and destroy the cube. But Sam, getting the hero moment of the movie, decides to push it into Megatron's spark. with that, Megatron has been vanquished. The cube has been destroyed. And though the Autobots have lost their dear friend Jazz, the battle is won, and new friends have been made along the way. Which all leads to the brief but succinct resolution, where Bumblebee gets his voice back miraculously. That's neat. The US government officially shuts down Sector 7 and dumps all of the Decepticon waste into the Laurentian abyss, where it will be crushed and destroyed forever. And finally, the movie bookends with narration from Optimus Prime once again, sending a message of hope to Autobots scattered throughout the universe.
I am Optimus Prime, and I send this message to any surviving Autobots taking refuge among the stars. We are here. We are waiting.
That movie was so awesome. Can we see it again? We gotta go see it again, dude. Yeah, it's still awesome. It even caps off with a couple little post-credit stingers. The first two show Sam's parents getting a little more comedic play, and the third shows Starscream blasting into the stars, presumably to gather more Decepticon forces from across the universe. Transformers was a huge success. Audience reactions were very positive. They were eating the movie up as it grossed a whopping $70 million over its opening weekend, and $155 million across its first 6 days. Even if critic reviews weren't the most glowing, audience word of mouth kept the movie going strong, bringing it to a spectacular $319 million haul in the United States, and a massive $709 million take worldwide. The movie brought the franchise to the largest stage it had ever been on, and its worldwide success ushered in perhaps the largest generation of new fans to the franchise. And even though there were plenty of design changes and new ideas, the movie was actually a pretty sizable return to form for some lost G1 concepts. Not just the return of Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime, but also characters like Ratchet, Jazz, and especially Bumblebee were brought back after having been completely absent from the franchise for the last 20 years. Perhaps the only common criticism among audiences was that they just wanted more. They wanted more robots, more action, more of the stuff they were enjoying in the first movie. But that hardly had an impact on the box office, as it more than held its own against big tentpole hitters over the remainder of the summer. The movie even made a brief appearance in IMAX theaters in September, which gave audiences the ability to see the movie on the biggest screens with a tiny little bit more footage. As such, with the success of Transformers and the slightly open-ended note the film ended on, audiences became immediately eager to see what would come next. Though despite the foregone conclusion that the film would get a sequel, official news about its release wasn't coming through immediately. In fact, there was some hesitation on the part of the studios because of several looming strikes over the coming year. Not only was a writer's strike looming in the fall, but an actor's strike was on the horizon for June 2008, which would effectively shut down the industry. Paramount and DreamWorks didn't want to move forward on Transformers 2 too hastily, lest they have to halt production and spend excessive amounts of money to work around the strike. But the amount of heel dragging slowly got to Michael Bay, who wanted to get to work on Transformers 2 immediately, and would jump ship if something didn't happen. Given that the studios saw Michael Bay as an incredibly lucrative asset, they finally bit the bullet and announced the release date for Transformers 2 as June 26, 2009. Finally, the light was green and things were moving forward on the much anticipated sequel. In fact, the writing team was announced pretty much immediately after the release date was set, with Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orsi returning to the sequel, now joined by Aaron Kruger, all set to work together to bring out the best version of Transformers 2 possible. Although their work wouldn't last long, as there was only about a month between their official signing and the Writers Guild strike, which began on November 5th, 2007. All of a sudden, writing across the entire industry was halted. While movies could still move forward, the world of TV was affected pretty much immediately, with studios quickly running out of already finished scripts, having to resort to reruns to fill time. As for Transformers 2, the pre-production process had to move forward without the writers if there was any chance of it meeting its planned June 2009 release. As such, Michael Bay took it upon himself to see that prep and pre-production got off to a quick start. In the meantime, the DVD of the first movie had had finally hit store shelves and was immediately selling like hotcakes, with 8.3 million units sold in its first week. Not just from audiences who saw it in theaters wanting it as part of their collection, but also audiences who didn't get the chance to see it in theaters but wanted to check it out now. Fans also got a deep dive into the behind the scenes as part of the 2-disc special edition, with 2 hours of bonus material chronicling the making of the movie, from the casting to the design to the vehicles to production, and yes, even to the creation of the CGI robots by ILM and Digital Domain. Movie fans certainly had their hands full with the DVD release, and with Transformers 2 on the horizon, they had plenty to look forward to. But Transformers wasn't going to exclusively become a movie franchise. TV fans were going to get some love too, as finally in December 2007, fans laid eyes on an all-new animated series. Initially referred to as Transformers the Animated Series before simply being shortened to Transformers Animated, this was the first show in 7 years that was developed entirely by Hasbro for North American audiences. In partnership with Cartoon Network Studios, as well as plenty of creatives from other popular animated shows like Teen Titans, Transformers Animated promised to be an adventure the likes of which fans had never seen before. With new, stylized designs, new ideas, and a new approach to the story, all of which were once again polarizing among older fans. A reaction that was all too familiar. But like all the previous ones, this show was geared for the newer fans, and with it being the first series to release after the live-action movie, it had more eyes on it than any Transformers show in a long time. And all led to December 26, 2007, where old and new fans would gather around the television for the all-new action-packed series, kicking off with a 3-part premiere titled Transform and Roll Out. The war between the Autobots and Decepticons has long been over, with the Autobots led by the heroic Ultra Magnus taking victory, thanks in part to their galaxy-wide network of space bridges. Space bridges that now require routine maintenance and repair, which is where Optimus Prime comes in, captain of a space bridge repair crew. He's also voiced by David Kaye, who is the only person to voice both Optimus and Megatron in a regular capacity. He's joined by a ragtag team of Autobots, including the young, eager, and hot-headed Bumblebee, the brute with a spark of gold Bulkhead, the silent and stealthy Prowl, and the old curmudgeon Ratchet. Together they come across the life-giving Allspark, which also draws the long-dormant but ruthless Decepticons onto their trail, led by the massive and imposing Megatron, voiced this time by longtime Transformers alumni Corey Burton. He's joined by loyal Lieutenant Lugnut, the 3-headed crazed lunatic Blitzwing, Spiderbot Black Arachnia, and of course the treacherous second-in-command Starscream. And this might be one of the best versions of Starscream, because in his second scene of the show, he shows off his treachery by blowing up Megatron as he tries to attack the Autobots. Starscream ain't messing around this time. He's taking Megatron out day one. But after a confrontation with the damaged Megatron, the Autobots wind up crashing on Earth, where they rest in stasis for 50 years, awakening in the 22nd century amidst Detroit, a technological paradise, thanks to the robotic ingenuity of brilliant scientist Isaac Sumdac. Now, the awakened Autobots, joined by main human comrade Sari Sumdac, who also gets a special key infused with the powers of the Allspark, wind up becoming heroes to humanity as, thanks to their strength and determination to do the right thing, they end up saving lives. It's ironic considering that Ultra Magnus very clearly believed that Optimus Prime was not hero material. In fact, Optimus was once destined to be a part of the much revered Elite Guard, until he was washed out and became a low-level captain.
And Prime, don't try to be a hero. It's not in your programming.
But all takes a turn once Starscream returns to the fold, having tracked the Allspark to Earth after all of this time, leading to a pretty massive battle where Starscream actually gets to be pretty intimidating. You know, he far outmatches this batch of repair bots, which all leads to a final confrontation against Optimus Prime, where upon opening the Allspark, Optimus manages to successfully keep it from Starscream's hands, though it comes at a heavy cost, as the resulting damage of the battle is too much for Optimus to bear.
So this is what it feels like to be a hero.
That is until Sari uses her key and reignites his spark, repairing all of his injuries. Alright, Optimus is alive, color is restored, and he's back on his feet. That's gotta be some kind of record. Dead and back in like a minute? Man, that's crazy. But with his revival, the Autobots work to repair the damage done to Detroit. All the while, the secret inspiration behind Isaac Sumdack's robotic enterprise is revealed. 50 years earlier, when the Autobots first crashed on Earth, he stumbled across the severed head of Megatron. And ever since, much like the live-action movie, he's been reverse engineering the technology to create this robotic haven. Worse yet, even though he's just a head, Megatron still functions, leading right into the remainder of the season as it aired in the early months of... From here, the show cements itself as the promised most fun Transformers series ever, seeing the Autobots continue to save the day as they settle into life on Earth. Not just learning about Earth customs from Sari, but also encountering perhaps the most fun human character in the entire franchise, Captain Fanzone.
This is why I hate machines.
The show also introduces for the first time a myriad of human supervillains to the fold, like Prometheus Black, who becomes the acidic Meltdown, Nino Sexton, who gets a speed-enhancing suit and becomes Nanosec. Then there's the Angry Archer, Professor Princess, and Henry Masterson, the last of whom created the dreaded Headmaster unit, a device that can replace the head of any Transformer, taking over its body to fit Masterson's needs. Though even with this lighter tone, the show managed to surprise plenty of fans, even the most critical ones, with a couple episodes that delved far deeper into more mature stories and deeper, long-term character arcs, like the episode The Thrill of the Hunt, which sees the introduction of bounty hunter Lockdown, who reignites plenty of Ratchet's traumatic memories from his time serving in the war for Cybertron, most notably a mission where he was forced to erase the mind of Intel bot RC to prevent vital information from entering the hands of the Decepticons. On top of that, Optimus Prime's backstory is delved into in the episode Along Came a Spider. When he was still in Autobot Academy, Optimus went on an unsanctioned op with fellow cadets Sentinel and Elita-1, an op where they encountered monstrous organic life. While Optimus and Sentinel escaped the encounter, Elita was left behind, thought to have gone offline. It's actually her loss that resulted in Ultra Magnus expelling Optimus from the Academy. But it turns out Elita is still alive in the present day, albeit as Black Arachnia, having merged with the organics to create a self-described monster. And this creates a dynamic very much so inspired by Batman and Catwoman. But by far the most intriguing long-form story that spans the entire season is the influence of Megatron. Despite being a severed head locked in a lab, he manages to influence pretty much every episode of the season, all in a quest to build himself a new body and retrieve the Allspark. Like how he gave Nino Sexton the suit so he could become Nanosec, or how he hacked into the Autobot base to try and retrieve the Allspark, and even an episode where he creates a dancing robot toy for kids, a toy that ultimately grows into the colossal Soundwave, in a pretty interesting new take on the iconic character. Soundwave isn't the only familiar face though, as the show also introduces the Dinobots, previously animatronic drones meant for entertainment, but when they're infused by Cybertronian technology, they become Grimlock, Swoop, and Snarl. While at first they're under the control of Megatron, Prowl sees good in them, and ultimately gives them sanctuary on a nearby island where they can live in peace. All of which builds to the return of the other Decepticons, Lugnut, Blitzwing, and eventually Starscream, leading to the two-part finale ominously titled Megatron Rising. It is here that because of the increased Decepticon activity, Optimus decides that the Allspark key is no longer safe in Sari's hands, lest it be stolen by the Decepticons. And then, of course, after taking the key away from her, the Decepticons immediately steal it. So, which leads to the moment where, with the key, Blitzwing and Lugnut use its power to reactivate Megatron's servos, repair his body, and return him to his full glory.
No! It can't be!
And oh boy is Megatron terrifying. I mean, he's absolutely massive in comparison to the Autobots, and while they use everything they can against him, they are no match. Hell, even Starscream wants to bask in Megatron's glory.
Ah, Starscream. How fitting to have you by my side, as I finally take my revenge on the one responsible for my 50 stellar cycles of helplessness and humiliation.
Oh, go Megatron! One act of treachery and he kills Starscream. That's awesome. And it all leads to a final battle between the Autobots and Decepticons over possession of the Allspark. The Autobots have to use their wits, or in Bumblebee's case, his obnoxious personality, to defeat the Decepticons, resulting in some pretty clever moments. And it all builds to a final confrontation between Optimus and Megatron, mirroring their fight in the pilot episode, where this time Megatron successfully merges the Allspark with his own spark, until ultimately, via use of the key, Optimus destroys the Allspark, defeating Megatron once and for all. Although Optimus doesn't believe the Allspark was completely destroyed, rather dispersed, leaving the door open for its return. But for the time being, the key is now the most powerful artifact in the Autobots' possession. As such, Optimus sees fit to return it to Sari, its rightful owner, stating that such power shouldn't be in the hands of a meager Autobot. However, the war isn't finished yet, as it's revealed that Megatron survived his defeat, and is now in the possession of Isaac Sumdac, who he will no doubt force to do his bidding in the second season.
It appears, Professor, that our fates are destined to be intertwined once more.
And with that, the first season of Transformers Animated came to a close. While there was plenty of pushback when it was first announced, the first season cemented itself as one of the best seasons of Transformers TV ever. The fun characters, fun ideas, the triumphant return of Megatron, all but the most critical of fans were completely on board for this new take on the robots in disguise. With the first season's conclusion, the corresponding toy line hit store shelves, a toy line that was scarily accurate to the show, mainly because there was a ton of collaboration between showrunners and toy makers, allowing the toys to accurately represent what audiences were seeing on screen. All the while, early in 2008, award season came around, and Transformers was nominated for 3 Academy Awards for sound editing, sound mixing, and visual effects. While it didn't take any of these awards home, it was still heralded by fans as a technical achievement, even by fans who perhaps weren't big on the characters or story ideas. And eventually, the writer's strike that had halted the industry for months had finally come to an end on February 12th. As such, Roberto Orci, Alex Kurtzman, and Aaron Kruger were back to complete the script for Transformers 2, picking up not only where they left off, but where Michael Bay and company had expanded on their ideas. Reportedly being locked in a hotel room for weeks, the writers were set to flesh out the remainder of the ideas for the new film, and boy did the machine start rolling as reports of location scouting started coming through right away. All in all, Transformers 2 was full steam ahead, but fans still had a while to wait. And given that Transformers Animated's first season ended on April 5th, they also had to wait for the second season debut all the way in the far-flung future of April 12th? But that's no time at all. That's 1 week. What are we waiting for? Let's jump into season 2. Come on, let's go. Following up on the defeat of Megatron and the dispersing of the Allspark, Season 2 centers on the Autobots encountering Allspark fragments spread out across the city of Detroit, with a bunch of episodes centering on a fragment bringing to life an all-new Transformer, like the pile of junk turned good-natured but simple-minded Wreck-Gar, who's actually voiced by Weird Al Yankovic, which is fun. Then there's the Constructicon Scrapper and Mixmaster, who in a fun twist are portrayed as stereotypical construction workers. They don't really care about which side they're on, they just want to build the best thing, then drink the best oil. It just so happens that the Decepticons have the best oil. The show also brings together all of the human supervillains in the episode SUV, Society of Ultimate Villainy. You got Nanosec, the Angry Archer, Professor Princess, and newcomer Slow-Mo, who has an Allspark shard of her own, allowing her to slow down time. Together they run into notorious black market dealer Swindle, who, with a voice by Fred Willard, became an instant fan favorite. I mean, he's always looking out for himself, always trying to get the highest reward, no matter who he has to swindle to get it.
Megatron, you old warmonger! It's been stellar cycles! I can't tell you how tickled I was to learn that my favorite customer was still online. You look great, by the way.
But by far the most fun thing to come out of the Allspark fragment idea is the return of Starscream. That's right, even after being killed by Megatron in the last season, a fragment of the Allspark manages to not only bring him back to life, but also make him invincible. As such, in one of the show's most fun sequences, he leads a barrage of attacks on Megatron, each one resulting in his death and subsequent rebirth over and over and over again. It's a neat take on such a familiar idea. But where the show really hits hard is with the arrival of the coveted Elite Guard, Ultra Magnus, Sentinel Prime, and Jazz. And these guys, they're the actual heroes of Cybertron, and Sentinel Prime, being the big chin jerk he is, constantly reminds Optimus of that fact.
You expect us to believe that a bunch of glitch detail flunkies could defeat Megatron?
Though there is some karmic justice when the Headmaster comes back into play, stealing Sentinel's body from him, resulting in Sentinel having to put his faith in Optimus to get his body back.
Sentinel? Where are you?
Look down.
The second season also introduces a mystery regarding Sari Sumdak, who at first is trying to keep her father's company intact now that he's captured by the Decepticons, but then shrewd businessman Porter C. Powell steals the company from under her, citing that there is no documentation that can prove she even exists.
Are you saying I can't prove I'm Isaac Sumdak's daughter?
I'm saying you can't even prove you exist.
Speculation ran rampant about what that could mean. How can she not exist? Where did she come from? Is she a robot? While developments there kept her character motivated throughout the second season, the mystery the season focuses on the most is the fact that Megatron has planted a spy amidst the Autobots. A spy that has infiltrated the highest levels of the Elite Guard. Who is this spy? Well, Bumblebee might know, as highlighted in the episode Auto Boot Camp. It's here that we explore both his and Bulkhead's backstory, as they were once enlisted into Autobot Academy alongside Longarm, Ironhide, and Wasp, all trained by the one and only Sentinel. Bumblebee and Bulkhead are definitely the black sheep of this crew, but humorously, Bulkhead doesn't really seem to mind.
Each of you, sound off! Why do you want to be here?
To be an Elite Guard intelligence officer, sir!
To be an Elite Guard trooper, sir!
To be an Elite Guard commander, sir!
Well, I was kind of hoping I could be a certified space bridge technician. Oh, sure!
But it's during this flashback that Bumblebee eavesdrops on one of his fellow students sending a message back to Megatron. He's found a mole among their ranks, and he believes it's Wasp. As such, in working with Longarm, he manages to find proof of Wasp's treachery, getting him kicked out of Autobot Academy, sending him away for the foreseeable future. Although the path to get there wasn't super smooth, as both Bumblebee and Bulkhead inadvertently injured Sentinel, resulting in both of them getting booted as well, which is why they wound up on Optimus Prime's repair team.
Whoa, yes! I have arrived! A bona fide space bridge technician!
But here's the thing. Bumblebee was dead wrong. Wasp was innocent. He wasn't the spy for Megatron. That honor is held by Longarm, who all these years later has become the chief communications officer of the Elite Guard. But unbeknownst to the Autobots, he's actually Megatron's most loyal servant, Shockwave. Oh man, I don't know why I didn't see that coming. He's even voiced by Corey Burton, the same guy who voiced Shockwave in G1, and he voices Megatron here. All of this leads to the two-part finale titled A Bridge Too Close, where Megatron's plan to retake Cybertron and reunite with Shockwave starts to come together. The Decepticons capture Bulkhead, bona fide space bridge technician, to help them complete a space bridge to begin their assault. At the same time, the Autobots are now joined by Elite Guard Agent Blur, who's voiced by John Machida, who also voiced Blur in the 1986 movie and subsequent third season of the cartoon. And on top of that, Starscream gets involved in this finale, where via use of the Allspark shard in his head, he's able to create several clones of himself, all of whom inherit a specific personality trait from the main Starscream.
He's a coward, he's an egomaniac, he's a suck-up, he's a liar!
I am not! So, which part of me did you come from?
Don't ask.
But it all culminates in a finale where all of these disparate threads come together for a final battle. A battle that also sees Ratchet and Sari work together to infuse Allspark fragments into the downed Autobot ship to repower it, which also reveals that there's more to the ship than meets the eye, as it transforms into the mighty Autobot warrior Omega Supreme. With every passing episode, this show just gets better and better, introducing new characters, new concepts, all in a deceptively expansive show. It even sees the reveal to Bumblebee that Longarm, or Shockwave, is the true Decepticon spy, hitting hard just how big of a mistake he made. And ultimately, it all results in the overload of Megatron's space bridge. As such, Blur, some of Starscream's clones, Megatron, Starscream's severed head, because it got separated by the Headmaster unit, and Omega Supreme are all sucked into the space bridge and thrown to who knows where in the vastness of space. Though even with the conflict having concluded, the season ends with the cliffhanger reveal that Sari is in fact a robot. Oh boy, after all the mystery surrounding the character, the reveal finally comes through. The only downside, fans had to wait until season 3 to see how it would resolve, and there wasn't going to be a simple 1-week gap between then and now. This time, the wait was real, leaving fans anxious over the remaining months of the year. However, as the year continued, there was plenty of news regarding the second live-action movie. Casting announcements were made with the additions of Isabel Lucas, Rainn Wilson, Matthew Marsden, and Ramon Rodriguez, all of which led to June 2nd, 2008, where Transformers 2 officially began production at the Bethlehem Steel Mill in Pennsylvania, which also led to a post on producer Don Murphy's forums which revealed Transformers 2's official title as Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. What could that mean? Is it referring to the fallen Decepticons from the previous movie, like Megatron returning to enact revenge on the Autobots? Or was it referring to the relatively obscure character The Fallen, introduced during the Dreamwave era of Marvel Comics and created by Simon Furman? Time would have to tell which the film was going to focus on, but fans were interested nonetheless. As the summer continued, production moved across the east coast of the United States, journeying to the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum, then eventually to the University of Pennsylvania and Princeton University over the course of June. Following that, production returned to California, where people were able to catch some glimpses of the mayhem that was to ensue. Eventually, the production moved to White Sands, New Mexico, home of the Scorponok sequence from the first movie, and if the E.T. behind-the-scenes exclusive is anything to go by, the action the area saw this time would absolutely blow the first movie out of the water. And finally, in the last stretch, production journeyed to the Middle East, filming in Egypt and Jordan, around the pyramids and other historical landmarks, to close out the massive action-packed shoot in October 2008. Clearly, Transformers 2 was going to go global, following bigger and more exciting adventures. This was bolstered by the fact that the movie was going to feature scenes formatted and filmed exclusively for IMAX. All signs pointed to one irrefutable fact: Transformers 2 was going to be massive, leaving fans incredibly excited to see some footage from the highly anticipated sequel. Though unfortunately, the first footage wasn't going to be revealed until early in 2009, leaving fans antsy over the holiday season. In the meantime, fans decided to fill the trailer fever themselves as they created self-titled, really good fake trailers for Revenge of the Fallen, which essentially boiled down to a wish list of cool characters that could, but probably won't, appear in the sequel. Ultimately, the only news coming from Transformers 2 before the year's end came from an Empire magazine special, the cover of which revealed the first new look at Optimus Prime, who looked like he was going to take a beating this time around. The special also featured interviews with the cast and director Michael Bay about the scale and challenges of bringing the Transformers to life once again, whilst also providing a handful of official set photos to tide fans over until something more substantial would be released in the early weeks of... Promotion kicked off immediately after the new year with this teaser poster, complete with the simple tagline, "Revenge is coming." That, along with the mysterious face, sparked a ton of fan speculation, with the most prominent theory being that this might just be the Fallen. While no answers came regarding the poster, it did finally mark the beginning of the marketing push that would carry fans and audiences all the way to the June 26th release, or more accurately, June 24th, as the film was pushed forward 2 days to get the movie to audiences just that much sooner. This marketing push finally led to the end of trailer fever, as fans finally got their first official look at Transformers Revenge of the Fallen in the form of a Super Bowl spot. In just 30 seconds, Transformers 2 finally made its way into the center of the pop culture conversation, with big action, spectacle, and more robots. Optimus Prime even gets dealt some punishment, all before the money shot of him jumping onto a massive Decepticon. Overall, Revenge of the Fallen looked bigger, badder, and better than the first movie, and excitement only ramped up in the following weeks as marketing didn't let up, finally releasing a full 2-minute teaser trailer for fans to sink their teeth into. Playing before Friday the 13th in theaters is oddly fitting for this trailer, as this sells the movie as a much darker enterprise than the first, with the first 30 seconds showing nothing but destruction and carnage in the wake of arriving meteors. Overall, however, the teaser would show audiences a great new look at some Transformer action, not only expanding on the existing teases from the Super Bowl, but showing additional footage of new characters, explosions, and mayhem that far outweighed anything seen in the first movie. The teaser didn't even show the title of the movie, simply ending with the poster tagline, "Revenge is coming," before swiftly exploding into the Decepticon insignia, mirroring the Autobot insignia seen in the first film's trailers. With this early burst of promotion, fans and audiences were incredibly excited as the countdown to June 24th began. Revenge of the Fallen was now easily one of the most anticipated movies of 2009. All the while, Activision unveiled the first look at the video game tie-in, this time developed by Luxoflux, to both expand and explore the story of the upcoming movie, providing new looks at the new and familiar characters, and even some of their upgrades to give hints as to how things might look in the upcoming movie. However, there's still a bit of time before Revenge of the Fallen makes its big screen debut in June. In the meantime, fans were finally able to return to TV screens for the third season of Transformers Animated. After 9 months away, fans could finally reunite with Optimus Prime and his ragtag team of repair bots in their struggle to defeat the Decepticons. In a slight departure from the first 2 seasons, Animated's third season goes a little bit darker and more mature with its set of episodes. I mean, for one thing, the human supervillains introduced in seasons 1 and 2 are nowhere to be found here, outside of a brief appearance by Henry Masterson. On top of that, the season kicks off with a massive battle for a space bridge, as Decepticons Strika, Oil Slick, Spitor, Blackout, and Cyclonus attack a band of Elite Guard agents, Ironhide, Brawn, Red Alert, Hotshot, and their commander Rodimus Prime, who's even voiced by Judd Nelson like he was in the 1986 movie.
You'll have to get past me first, Decepticreeps!
The season premiere also sees Blur return to Cybertron to inform the Elite Guard that there's a traitor in their midst. The only problem is that the traitor, Shockwave, gets to him first, trapping him in an inescapable hallway, collapsing the walls, crushing him into scrap. Ooh, now that's a gruesome way to go out. I mean, there might be a tiny bit of ambiguity surrounding his death, but given the fact that he never shows up again is not a good sign. Although Shockwave's treachery does begin to reveal itself, as the Elite Guard slowly becomes suspicious of him. The walls are closing in, leading to Shockwave becoming desperate, making a break for it by nearly destroying Ultra Magnus. And this ultimately leads to Sentinel Prime becoming acting Magnus for the time being, which is perhaps the worst person you could have chosen to become the new leader of Cybertron. But of course, Season 3 follows up on the most interesting thread from Season 2's conclusion, the reveal that Sari is in fact a robot, explaining that several years ago, Isaac Sumdac stumbled upon a small Cybertronian protoform, and upon making contact with it, it absorbed his DNA, creating Sari Sumdac herself. Following this, desperate to help the Autobots with her newfound abilities, Sari infuses herself with the power of her key, upgrading herself into a techno-organic new superhuman, able to help the Autobots against the Decepticons. It's a neat upgrade that allows her to have a little more involvement in some of the action. Another continuing thread from Season 2 follows the exiled Wasp, who's hell-bent on getting revenge on Bumblebee, resulting in him taking over Bumblebee's life for a little bit, all until the Autobots, joined by Sentinel Prime and newcomers Jetfire and Jetstorm, who can combine to form Safeguard, end up discovering the truth and free Bumblebee once again. The Wasp never does get proven innocent, as instead he falls under the thrall of Black Arachnia, who winds up turning him into the techno-organic Waspinator. Yo, it's like the Beast Wars character! The Beast Wars references don't stop there though, as both Black Arachnia and Waspinator are inadvertently transported to an unknown place on Earth, where they come across a gorilla, a rhino, a cheetah, and a rat. You know, the Maximals.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
Another episode sees the creation of an all-new Constructicon Dirt Boss, who, in keeping with the stereotypical construction worker idea, he immediately becomes a hard actuated boss who you don't want to mess with.
Whoa! Someone's got a big chip on his engine block.
You ever try working for a living, Tiny? Taking orders from the man? Move this, move that. Well, forget about it. I'm in charge now.
The two-parter Human Error sees the Autobots get trapped inside of a computer simulation by Soundwave, a simulation where they're trapped in human bodies, much like the G1 episode Only Human. Though here the Autobots realize they're in a simulation, which ends up leading to some pretty fun moments. And eventually all of them are freed by Sari Sumdac and her Autobot B-Team, including Scrapper, Snarl, and Wreck-Gar, which is fun. At the same time, Prowl's backstory is explored quite a bit here. As it turns out, long ago he was just as arrogant and headstrong as Bumblebee, but upon meeting with Master Yokotron, he learned the ways of the Cyber Ninja, becoming the silent and stealthy warrior the show has popularized. It even introduces the concept of processor over matter, which here is kind of a catch-all ability that allows Prowl to do virtually anything, most notably, move things with his mind. Though, like the other characters, Prowl's backstory is also rife with tragedy, as he was once tasked with safeguarding a batch of protoforms under Master Yokotron's care, but Prowl's own carelessness resulted in their destruction and the death of his master. Prowl soon after went into self-imposed exile, where he eventually wound up as part of Optimus Prime's Space Bridge repair team when his own ship was no longer able to fly. Man, all of these characters have some horrible tragedy in their past, except Bulkhead though. That dude's doing just fine. It's also revealed that Jazz, the Elite Guard agent, was also a student of Master Yokotron, trained in the arts of processor over matter. And with Jazz joining Optimus Prime's team towards the end of the season, both he and Prowl trained together to perfect their skills. But ultimately, the longest running arc of the season sees Megatron and the severed head of Starscream gain control of the Autobot warrior Omega Supreme. And once they reunite with Lugnut and eventually Shockwave, they they all work together to create several clones of Omega Supreme, utilizing the same technology that Starscream used to create his clones in Season 2, which all builds to the two-part finale aptly titled Endgame. It is here that following the discovery of Ultra Magnus's destruction, the coveted Magnus hammer falls into the possession of Optimus Prime. Now, with the hammer and a jetpack at his disposal, he and his team must face off against Megatron's Omega Supreme clones to save the Earth once and for all. It's a battle for the ages as Optimus Prime and Megatron become interlocked in a final stand.
You're a persistent little Autobot. My name is Optimus Prime!
All the while, in order to control the Titans, Shockwave captured Intel Bot RC, as the important information that Ratchet erased all of those years ago was actually access codes to Omega Supreme. As such, while Optimus fights Megatron, some of the other Autobots rush out to save RC, which ultimately leads Ratchet to finally get some closure, as he frees her from the Decepticons, and thanks to Shockwave's handiwork, her memory has been restored. That's nice. Good for you, Ratchet. Though despite this cathartic moment, the day is not one without sacrifice. As to finally defeat the Omega Supreme clones, Prowl and Jazz use processor over matter to gather every Allspark fragment from across the city. Yes, that includes the fragment in Starscream's head, which ultimately results in his final death. Though the reconstitution of the Allspark takes its toll, and to bring it all together once and for all, Prowl sacrifices himself to defeat the final clone. It's a fairly emotional scene. I mean, Prowl's consistently been one of the strongest characters in the show, so seeing him go hits pretty hard. But it all leads to the final confrontation between Optimus Prime and Megatron, where finally Megatron gets his just desserts once and for all. Thanks to Optimus Prime, the Autobots have claimed victory. As such, they return to Cybertron with their prisoners being hailed as heroes, bringing the season to a pretty satisfying close. Although, unfortunately for fans of the show, that actually wound up being the series finale. As much as fans were hoping for a fourth season, Hasbro decided to call it quits on Transformers Animated. Instead, they wanted to pursue a show that they had more control over, a show that would be hosted on Hasbro's own television network. But despite the lack of a fourth season, Transformers Animated would ultimately go down as one of, if not the very best Transformers series, rivaling that of Beast Wars, and that's some high praise. But now, with Transformers Animated having come to a close, there was nothing left between now and the highly anticipated June 24th release of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. As the weeks continued into April, official images were released from the production, and some new footage even debuted for the Show West convention. But despite how exciting that footage was, most people weren't going to lay their eyes on it. As such, kicking off the final marketing push for the film, a second trailer was released in front of X-Men Origins Wolverine and Star Trek at the tail end of April 2009.
B, I want to talk to you about the college thing, okay?
I'm so excited!
Hey, I'm not taking you with me.
Over 2.5 minutes, this trailer significantly brightens the tone compared to the previous ones, all the while showing off a barrage of massive Transformers action that looked like it was dialed all the way up to 11. The trailer also revealed more of the story, hinting at Sam's quest to uncover the mysteries of the Cybertronian symbols in his head, all the while the Decepticons are chasing him around the world, led by the reawakened Megatron. I mean, this is just awesome, and the fact that the second half of the trailer is set to the Scorponok track from the first movie, I mean, does it get better than that? But that's all merely a prelude to the biggest reveal of the most anticipated new addition to the movie, Devastator. June 24th can't come soon enough. Excitement was at a fever pitch following this trailer, and only continued as the marketing push continued towards release with an onslaught of new TV spots, posters, and even a slightly modified version of the second trailer, which debuted in theaters before Terminator Salvation. Mirroring the much bigger scale of the movie, the marketing for Revenge of the Fallen far surpassed the already massive campaign for the first movie. Thanks to the massive push, the movie was most definitely at the center of the pop culture conversation. The marketing efforts were once again joined by a massive product tie-in blitz, with even more products than the first movie. Man, Michael Bay just keeps getting away with it, huh? From Burger King to LG and even M&M's, who had a massive tie-in with Transformer-themed M&M's, and even a Michael Bay M&M? That's crazy. 7-Eleven got their hand in the game as well, with Revenge of the Fallen themed Slurpee cups, as well as exclusive little figures of the principal robot cast. The toy line also hit shelves in the lead up to the film's release, a line that featured the new characters set to appear in the movie, as well as a massive surplus of ancillary characters. By far the biggest selling point among this line was the monstrous Devastator, coming as 6 individual pieces that could combine to form the ultimate Decepticon. At the same time, the video game tie-in released on June 23rd, a day before the release of the movie. While it was released to mixed reviews much like its predecessor, it was considered among Transformers fans to be a sizable improvement on the first game. Not only did it follow and even expand on the film's story, but it was also the first Transformers game to feature an online multiplayer. For the first time, you could fight as either an Autobot or Decepticon with or against your friends in 4v4 matches with a variety of game modes. It was a significant expansion for Transformers gaming fans, one that ensured the game's longevity as players could drop into matches anytime they wanted. Eventually, on June 8th, Revenge of the Fallen had its world premiere in Tokyo, Japan, which is fitting given that Japan is where Transformers began. And 2009 also marked the 25th anniversary of the franchise. Although weirdly enough, the movie wasn't quite done when it first premiered. In fact, as the movie was premiering around the world, each premiere featured slightly different variations on the movie, as Michael Bay and the team were putting the finishing touches on it all the way up until the literal last minute. Talk about cutting it close. Despite that, excitement didn't waver one bit. Fans and audiences were super eager to jump back into theaters for the blockbuster event, and eventually all led to June 24th, 2009, where finally, after 2 years since the first movie changed the trajectory of the franchise forever, Revenge of the Fallen was here. It was now time to jump on over to theaters for one of the most hotly anticipated blockbusters of 2009.
Earth, birthplace of the human race.
Once again kicking off with narration from Optimus Prime, he tells us that while the first movie set up the Cube as the first Cybertronian artifact to come to Earth, this movie establishes that the Transformers were on Earth long before that. In 17,000 BC, ancient humans discovered a legion of Transformers, chief among them the Fallen, who, upon laying eyes on humans, definitely didn't like what he saw, immediately taking it upon himself to kill them all with no hesitation. If you want to save yourself the ticket price, go into the kitchen, cue up a male choir singing the music of hell, and get a kid to start banging pots and pans together. Then close your eyes and use your imagination. That was a quote from Roger Ebert's review of Transformers 2, and it was only one of many. Despite how eagerly anticipated the sequel was, critical reception was bewilderingly negative. Critics laid into Transformers 2 without remorse, and honestly, I can see why. The first movie, while not perfect by any means, was interested in telling a story with spectacular visual effects, attention to detail, and an interest in awe and sincerity on the part of the robots. In contrast, Transformers 2 is a much more violent, loud, crass, crude, and perverted movie which doesn't let up for even a second as the glorious images wash over you across a monstrous 2.5-hour runtime. The military involvement is dialed up to 11 this time around, as the Autobots have joined forces with them to create the secret task force known as NEST, leading to a side plot where the Autobots are said to be losing favor with the US government. But that doesn't really come to fruition in any meaningful way. It's really only here to introduce Galloway. any of the heart or humor from the first is replaced with loud shouting matches, crude remarks, and incessant sex jokes that parents would likely want to cover their kids' eyes from at the theater. Sam and Michaela's budding relationship is now an annoying on-again, off-again affair where they break up and get back together no less than 3 times over the course of the story. Sam's entire plotline of journeying to college is filled with stereotypes and crass humor, from Leo, his childish conspiracy theorist roommate who ends up taking part in the movie's adventure, to the hot girl Alice, whose only purpose in the story is to seduce Sam, given that it is eventually revealed that she is actually a Decepticon pretender, which, to be fair, does lead to a pretty sweet transforming effect. But hey, you know what? Even during this stretch, the movie does come through with one funny joke.
Freshman!
Yeah.
That's your car in our bushes?
No, there's a friend of mine. He just went to get you a tighter shirt.
There isn't a tighter shirt. We checked.
Despite all of the glaring issues and negative qualities, however, if you were to put this movie on again for me right now, I'd grab some popcorn, sit back, and quite frankly, enjoy the ride. I know, it's crazy. Big robots are still cool, what can I say? This movie once again follows Sam Witwicky, as this time around he's infected by a shard of the Allspark, infusing his mind with alien symbols, making him a commodity for the Decepticons, who believe that the symbols can lead them to an Energon source of some kind. The Autobots are back in action as well, not only featuring returning characters like Bumblebee, who gets a sweet introduction blasting away some kitchen bots, Ironhide, who also gets a slick introduction in the opening scene.
He's here. I smell him.
And of course, Optimus Prime, whose introduction into this movie is downright awesome.
Autobots, I'm in pursuit.
Oh, and Ratchet's also back. Yeah. Sorry, I almost forgot about him. But so did the filmmakers, as he's not really in the movie. But as promised by the end of the first movie, the Autobot roster is greatly expanded this time around, with 3 female motorcycles, RC, Chromia, and Elita 1 joining the fold, alongside the electricity-powered Jolt and speed-skating Sideswipe.
Damn, I'm good.
But the most significant of the new additions are the twins, Skids and Mudflap, who...
I got the green. That hurt, man. It's supposed to hurt. It's an ass kicking.
Oh no.
Hey, Mudflap, what are we gonna do with this shrimp taco?
Just bump a cap in his ass, throw him in the truck, and then nobody gonna know nothing, not me.
Yeah.
Oh, this is bad.
Can you read this?
Read? Nah, we don't really do much reading.
Oh, this is really bad, guys. Like, offensively bad. At least the new Decepticons fare a little bit better, as this opening scene introduces 2 new ones, starting with the slippery Sideways. Oh, he's dead. Alright, but there is the massive and imposing Demolisher, who destroys a bridge, just like in the trailer.
Not today.
Oh, come on, Optimus. Really? You're getting violent this time around. I don't know if I like it. Some Decepticons that are introduced to stay, however, are the Decepticon satellite Soundwave, who also deploys his minion Ravage, who deploys 1,000 little ball bearings which transform and combine to form Reedman, who, if you look at him straight on, he's practically invisible. A neat concept, but a weird delegation of Decepticons to complete one mission. Well, it looks kinda cool, I'll give it that. And it's here to further the plot, as together, these Decepticons steal the Allspark shard that Optimus recovered at the end of the first movie. Though the only reason the Decepticons knew where to find it was because Galloway just straight up said its location right as Soundwave was eavesdropping. You know what else he reveals? The location of Megatron. As such, the Decepticons waste no time, as joined by a handful of Constructicons, they use the Allspark shard and revive their leader. It's funny funny how the thing that killed him in the first movie is also the thing that brings him back in this one. But upon reuniting with the treacherous Starscream and reporting his failings to his master, the Fallen, who we are formally introduced to, the Decepticons' next step is revealed. They need the information within Sam's mind, and they need to be rid of the only one capable of defeating the Fallen.
Only a Prime can defeat me, and now only one remains.
Optimus. He protects the boy.
Which leads to the eventual capture of Sam, Michaela, and Leo as the Decepticons attempt to extract the information from Sam's mind, all before Optimus Prime and Bumblebee show up to fight against them in what is perhaps the best sequence in the entire movie. It is here that Optimus, in an attempt to defend Sam, fights off against Megatron, Starscream, and Grindor in this massive forest battle. The visual effects, practical and otherwise, are a sight to behold, watching as trees are knocked down as these robots beat into each other. And if you saw the movie in IMAX, you'd get even more from the sequence, as it spends even more time withering Optimus down more and more, dealing critical blows left and right. Optimus gets dealt some punishment, but it all leads to a glorious 20 seconds where he whips out a second, never-before-seen sword and goes all out against the Decepticons. The Steve Jablonsky score is blaring, the visuals are amazing, it's the first time Optimus Prime has been shown in live action just laying waste to Decepticons, even though he does get kind of violent.
Sam, where are you? So weak.
Oh, why do you keep doing this to me, man? Optimus Prime is dead? This is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th time he's died. And yet somehow it's still a fairly effective moment. It hits pretty well, all things considered.
Run.
And it's made all the more devastating when his dead body is just dropped on the tarmac without even a care in the world. That's Optimus Prime you're dealing with. Show some damn respect. But it's after Prime's death that the movie switches gears a little bit, going headfirst into an invasion sequence where the Decepticons bombard the Earth in a truly impressive show of carnage and destruction. I mean, once again, the visual effects killed it here. The scale at which things are destroyed is truly impressive, and it all ultimately leads to the Fallen appearing on the world stage, revealing the Transformers' existence to all of humanity, and pointing all eyes towards Sam Witwicky in an attempt to hunt him, corner him, and find him, so the Decepticons can retrieve the information in his head. So now Optimus is dead, the Transformers are known, the Autobots are on the back foot, the Decepticons are here, and Sam is a wanted man, leading us into what is definitely the better half of the movie. I mean, if you were hating it up to this point, the rest of the movie will do nothing to win you over, but at least Sam is now actively investigating the symbols himself, which leads to a reunion with Simmons from the first movie, and through his help, along with Wheelie, an RC car Decepticon very much so in love with Michaela, they locate a robot that can help illuminate the current mystery. Although while the second half is better, the crude humor still persists. There's really no escaping it. Wheelie does hump Michaela's leg. But it's here in the Smithsonian that we're introduced to Jetfire, an old curmudgeon of a Decepticon left to rust by the Fallen many years ago. And upon suddenly teleporting our heroes to Egypt, he finally enlightens them and us on the backstory of the movie.
Beginning, middle, end. Facts, details, condense, plot, tell it.
Turns out the Fallen was one of 7 original Primes who created a machine capable of destroying suns to generate energon to fuel the Cybertronian race. While they had a rule to never destroy a planet with life, the Fallen wanted to defy that rule and destroy humanity via use of the Harvester, which can only be activated by the Matrix of Leadership. Finally, an hour and 30 minutes in, we've introduced the MacGuffin. The first movie did that in the very first scene. This one's slipping. The Matrix, however, is the energon source the symbols in Sam's head point to, the object that everyone is after, and it's been hidden in a tomb of the other 6 primes somewhere in the vast Egyptian desert. It is here that Sam, Michaela, Leo, and Simmons all journey on an adventure to uncover the clues of the symbols, to discover the location of the tomb of the primes and the Matrix within, not just to thwart the Fallen's plans, but to use its power and reactivate Optimus Prime. Alright, yeah, let's get Prime back, come on. As such, Nest are led into the plan as they're set to bring Optimus's body to Egypt, ready to be revived. Although they gotta get rid of Galloway first, leading to a scene where Lennox and Epps stage a malfunction so they can inadvertently throw Galloway off of the plane.
I want you to pull the blue! I need you to pull it really hard! Not now! We're on the plane, you dumbass! What now? Did you say goodbye? No, I didn't even say goodbye.
Eventually, however, Sam and the others find the Tomb of the Primes, hidden amidst a massive carved structure, which is one of the only moments where the movie stops in awe at the scale of something, which is nice. Though of course the only way they actually get inside the tomb is through a fight between the twins, in a thinly veiled attempt to justify their inclusion. But it's here that they find the Matrix of leadership. Their troubles are about to blow away. Aw, man, I didn't mean literally, come on, dude. But Sam's not gonna give up. He's gonna collect as much Matrix dust as he can. Any hope there is must be used. Optimus must come back. I too would be just as eager to bring Optimus back, so I relate personally. And look at that, Nest has arrived with the body of Optimus, which sparks the Decepticons to spring into action as an armada of them are deployed to search and destroy. As such, we enter the third act. Or really, the 30-minute final battle, which doesn't really have any coherence or sense of stakes or geography, or any real indication that anything happening moment to moment has any impact on the larger story at hand. But if you're looking for an assault on the senses, this is the place to go. On one side of this finale, we see Sam and Michaela inching their way towards Lennox, Epps, and the Autobots whilst being chased by Decepticons. There's even a brief fight between Bumblebee and Rampage, which Ravage also interjects into, but that's short-lived as his spine is ripped out and his head pops off. And then Bumblebee tears off Rampage's arms, watching as he collapses with barely a neck left, dead from the damage. Man, Bumblebee did not hold back. On the other side of this finale, however, is perhaps the one sequence that fans were excited for the most, as Simmons and Leo come across a group of construction vehicles which all combine to form Devastator, who is not just a testament to the impressive visual effects in this movie, but also the awesome sound design. I mean, just listen to this. Man, that just sounds so cool. There's a level of creativity to the sound design that's really cool to me. Every character sounds a bit different. They each have a different library of sounds, so you can tell which character is which just by the sounds they make as they move. It's a lot of fun. But this whole Devastator plotline resolves with Devastator climbing up one of the Great Pyramids of Giza and destroying its peak, revealing the Harvester inside, ready to activate. All the while, Simmons attempts to get access to a railgun to destroy Devastator in one fell swoop. Because yes, if you tell the military you used to be a government operative, they will fire wherever you tell them to. This is correct. Although, in perhaps the most bizarre choice in this entire movie, even Devastator cannot evade the wrath of Michael Bay's humor.
I am directly below. Enemy scrotum.
But hey, the railgun shoots and blows up Devastator with pinpoint accuracy, so that's neat, I guess. Maybe it'd also be cool if you pointed the gun a little over to the right and destroyed the machine also, but I don't know. Beggars can't be choosers, I guess. All the while, Sam and Michaela finally reunite with Lennox and Epps, as they're also swiftly joined by Jetfire, who even fights Scorponok. Hey, the Scorpion bot from the first movie is back.
Too old for this crap.
Never mind, he's dead. Although it does lead to the final rush towards Optimus Prime, where in true Michael Bay fashion, this movie features the biggest on-screen explosion with actors present. It's an impressive show of practical effects. This movie really didn't spare a single dime when it came to blowing things up really, really big. And while it's entirely possible that the record for biggest on-screen explosion has been surpassed since this movie, it's still a massive sight. But as Sam makes his approach towards Optimus, Megatron emerges from the smoke and kills him. Wait, what? Sam dies? Sure seems like it, as even with the military paramedics on the scene, his heart has stopped beating. Wait, what's happening now? Oh, Sam has entered Autobot heaven and is talking to the original Primes. This is genuinely insane. I mean, with no prior setup, the Primes are simply here to tell Sam how awesome he is and that his destiny is to revive Optimus Prime, which is a terrible destiny. I mean, your entire purpose in life is just to bring back some other guy? But through their inexplicable power, Sam is revived, the Matrix is restored, and he uses its power to... Optimus is back, let's go, dude. Although the celebration is short-lived as the Fallen appears, swiftly stealing the Matrix from Optimus, leaving him for dead and rushing off to activate the Harvester. Now, in his weakened state, it is only through Jetfire's help that Optimus can defeat the Fallen. As such, Jetfire rips out his own spark, sacrificing his body so Optimus can take on his parts to become a powered-up Super Optimus.
Let's roll.
That is really dark for Jetfire, but it's pretty cool for Optimus. Now, with no time to waste, Optimus attacks Megatron and the Fallen and destroys the Harvester, which then begins the final stand, as Optimus swiftly blasts half of Megatron's face off, all before cutting off his arm. It's so good to have Optimus back in action. I mean, this super-powered form is just awesome, and as he goes up against the Fallen, I sure hope he doesn't say or do anything completely out of character. That'd be weird.
Give me your face.
Optimus, what the hell is wrong with you? You gotta think for faces or something? You just thought, hey, let's rip this guy's face off and crush his spark with my bare hands. That's psycho behavior, Optimus. Go see a doctor. Ratchet is right over there. But with the Fallen's death, Megatron and Starscream retreat, as the Autobots once again claim victory. And with no time to waste, all parties swiftly head home, having not learned a single thing and without anything really meaningful having changed.
I am Optimus Prime, and I send this message so that our pasts will always be remembered. For in those memories, we live on.
And that's the end of the movie. Wow, that was a lot. With all of the relentless action and spectacle, it's no secret that critics absolutely despised the movie upon its release. But weirdly enough, the opposite was true of audiences. They were eating the movie up. They thought it was awesome. The spectacle, the action, the constant stimulation, it was exactly what they wanted. And it catapulted the movie to an astonishing $402 million domestic total and $836 million worldwide. It was one of the biggest movies of 2009, much to the surprise of critics, who couldn't quite fathom how in the world this could have possibly resonated with audiences. That didn't mean the sequel was completely free of controversy, however, as there were plenty of audience members who rejected the excessive sex jokes, and especially the twins, who were the target of much scrutiny because, well, it's not like any of that really mattered though, as Transformers 2 continued to dominate the summer box office, more than holding its own against other box office titans like Ice Age 3 and Harry Potter 6. As such, the Transformers franchise was more popular than it had ever been. Even if the latest outing was a target of much scrutiny, this greatly increased revenue stream allowed Hasbro to pump a lot more money into ancillary projects outside of the movies. And with there being no doubt that a third live-action film was on the way, it was becoming clear to many fans that Transformers had now entered a golden age.
The Transformers will return after these messages.